Hello everybody, welcome into our latest live video. Today it's the 13th of March 2025. It's Thursday. Thursday already? Must be Thursday. I swear it was Wednesday just yesterday. Anyway, welcome in and thank you for hanging out with us today. We're doing another mini PC review, but this time we're going to go higher up on the chain instead of just looking at budget machines, which is essentially the most you can get for the least amount of money. That was yesterday's video. Now we're going to talk about more of a mid-range PC. So the most mid-range you can get for the amount of money. And right now, the one that's on the table that we're here to evaluate and just kind of give an overview to is a company called Reatan. And we've featured a couple of their machines in past videos. And I haven't had any complaints about them, or concerns. So when they reached out and said, would you be interested in reviewing our latest Silver 9? They had one called an Alloy 9, and I think we reviewed that one. Anyway, I have nothing but good things to say. I said, sure, send it along. And what we're looking at here today is a 12900 based CPU. Now, what I've talked to you guys about before is how much money it costs to be first. You think about the movies. You want to go to the movies and see something on opening weekend, you're going to pay full ticket price. Wait a few weeks, you might be able to stream it for free. If you want to be first, you pay for being first. And that's all well and good. I don't have a problem with it whatsoever. I, on the other hand, I like my money to go as far as possible. I have a very limited amount of money, and I assume most people do. And I'm trying to make that reach in every area of my life as far as I can get it. So if it's the grocery store I'm shopping at, I want to make sure I'm getting the best value for my money. If there's things that are extremely high priced, which sometimes we go through fads with milk, butter, and currently eggs, I don't need any eggs right now. If I need to buy them, I'll buy them. But in the meantime, just on a whim, I can wait. The price will drop back down. It's all just temporary. Same with gas in the car. If I see gas prices going up, I might just let the tank go a little bit lower and throw the dice and think maybe the gas will come back down a bit. So I'm not really super tight with my money. I do get what I want, but I do a little bit of research to know the value of what I'm buying. And then I have to assess internally, is it worth the sacrifice of parting with that money in order to get the benefit of that thing I'm buying? And that's on every aspect of my life. So when I'm looking at computers, I've always built my own because that's always where the value has been. That way you get exactly what you want, and you know you're paying the same price everybody else is paying with regards to, shopping at Newegg or Amazon or B&H Photo, wherever you happen to shop. Whatever that motherboard costs you, it costs me. So that way there's no concern about me feeling like a sucker that I got taken because I paid more than somebody else. Right? So I know I paid the bare minimum, which is pretty much what everybody pays. Now, of course, whenever there's coupons or discounts, closeouts, or if I'm buying something returned, that's an exception to the rule. Now, mini PCs, since they've been out for a while, we now have older versions of mini PCs that are very depreciated in value because they're not the latest and greatest, but they're also not old and ancient. There would be a good term. Between childhood and retirement, there's this big middle area where you are working and you are productive and you are active in society for most of us. So you kind of start out getting ready to get trained and you go to school and you pay all the money maybe for college. And then in your early 20s, perhaps you're hitting the real job market and you'll spend the next 30, 40, 45 years working, and then you get to retire, and then you kind of revert back to just staying at home all day and relaxing from 45 years of work. Well, in much the same way, when these machines first came out, they were highly sought after because they were flagship products at that time. And we're only talking about two and a half years ago. And then another flagship product came out and another flagship product came out. And usually on these mobile chips, the flagship products come out about 6 months to a year after the desktop. So if the desktop 12900 CPU came out in January, then the 12900H portable, I don't know if that's the right word, mobile CPU, that comes out usually months later, sometimes up to a year later. So it's still a brand new flagship product, but on the mobile side of things, it lags behind the desktop side. And they're different. The 12900 desktop CPU is much larger, consumes more power, it gets much hotter. And the mobile 12900 CPU is much smaller, consumes less power, doesn't get as hot. And obviously there's going to be a performance difference there, but enough that that 12900 still achieves that name in performance in that sector of mobile category. And such is the same with video cards. If you're getting a mobile NVIDIA chip on your gaming laptop versus having an actual NVIDIA card, the mobile chip is lower power, lower heat, and lower output, even though it may be the same model as the desktop model from the same brand manufacturer. So what we have here is a previous flagship model that once sold for about twice what they want for it today. Now it's brand new and it's never been used, and it's, we'll call it yesterday's flagship. Now look, I'm not about buying obsolete technology, and this is far from that. Right now, to find a mobile 14900, I've seen one so far from our friends at Miniswarm. The 13900 is still primarily the flagship Intel processor used on these mobile and mini PCs. So to just go one more back to the 12900, it's less than a 10% difference in performance, but it's a much bigger difference in price. So I'm excited, if you can't tell, to take a look at what kind of value we can get today on what was once a much more expensive product. And the product hasn't changed. The price has changed. The product is still the same product it was last year. So I'm very, very interested to see how it performs. We've had a good review of previous Reatan products, and I realized our audience all over the world has different values and different, the amount you're willing to spend for a PC is going to vary for each viewer, how important it is to you and what justifications you have. Some people have the luxury of buying it because they feel like it. Most of us, I think, buy whatever we need and we'd like to take care of it for a while so we don't have to buy another one anytime soon. So when you get on those very low budget machines that are like $200 or less, you're probably going to have to replace that in about 3 or 4 years. When you get something more mid-range or higher end, you could probably have that last you 8 to 10 years, no different than a desktop these days. And you can get more power, more RAM, more CPU, just overall better specs for several $100s less than it would cost you to build your own desktop. So while some people still may feel the need to do that or may actually have a need, most home users and even most businesses do not have that need to have a big desktop or a big tower computer anymore. This is fading away, and in a few years, outside of corporate America, we probably won't see gaming towers outside of enthusiasts and gamers and hobbyists. It's coming because it costs way too much money. And it's one of the reasons I don't have more hobbies. The hobbies cost money. Working pays me money. So I do enjoy my hobbies, but I've got to make sure that things like learning how to fly an airplane are not on my hobbies list. Now, if I'm paid to fly an airplane, I'd be interested in paying all the money and all the flight time for all the training and all the gas and fuel you got to pay for to rent the plane. But that is a very expensive hobby. I would love to learn how to fly a plane. I cannot afford to learn how to fly a plane. But again, if I was going into a career where I would be paid to fly a plane, different story entirely. So with that being said, let me say hello to everybody joining us today. There's our friend Buster. Buster sent me a 3D printed Darth Vader this thing. I guess it's a pen holder, so I thought I'll take the pens that Buster sent, or at least one of my Star Wars pens, and hold it, have him hold it in his hands right there. Check that out. So yeah, when we get Studio C set up, then I don't have to go digging through the drawer when I need a pen. I can just have that maybe off to the side or behind me. That's clever. And thank you so much, Buster. I appreciate you so much. Never saw that coming. And it'll get put to use for sure. And Buster joins us there, here in the chat room. With a 10-pound super chat, Buster says, hello, Carey and Mara and everyone in the chat. All the best from Bonnie, Scotland. Oh, I'm losing my voice. The temperature in Edinburgh, 39 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 3.8 degrees Celsius. We are supposed to have a 100% chance of rain in Phoenix. I've never heard the weatherman say that before. And supposedly within an hour to 2 hours, 100% chance of rain. I look outside, it doesn't look like it wants to rain. But no, they're saying these storms from San Diego are definitely coming over here. They're predicting their arrival time and that they will arrive. So we'll see if during the broadcast I get some noise or I get distracted off to the side over at the window here to see if it comes down pouring. And we can use it here in Phoenix, quite frankly. We can use the rain. But again, thank you, Buster, for your continued generosity and your thoughtfulness. And your super chat, of course. John says hello from Colchester, UK. I see Mark Baggett and Mark Gaines joining us. Jonathan and William Denton say hello, along with Doman 2000. Scott says hello. Gary Bickle says hello. There's our friend David Graham joining us here in the chat, along with Eddie Casanova, Tony's RC, and Dustin Fuller. And let me scroll down here. Oh, Ben Laird says hello from Scotland. That's 3 Scottish folks watching us. And we're not even in Scottsdale. Welcome in, everybody. You want to trade places? I'll go to Scotland. You guys can come to Phoenix. Just for like 10 years. Paul Howe said he swapped out his big floor desktop for a mini PC that can sit on my desk. Yeah, and you probably find the mini PC is more powerful, it's quieter, and it may even have more ports and easier to access ports like USB and such. Like usually you're not sacrificing anything, you're upgrading and you're making it better, but at the same time smaller, lighter, and quieter and more powerful. Dazzle555 says hello. Douglas Burchell joins us along with Davis Parsons. Davis says you can write off hobbies on your taxes. Well, there you go. You know, that assumes you're making enough money that you can have something to deduct. But yes. Let's see. Christian Lunder says 12900HK obsolete. I have 9 gen. Yeah, I don't know if that's a joke, but it's nowhere near obsolete. In fact, if you want to go on Amazon and look at the prices on a 12900 chip, they cost more than this whole mini PC in some cases. So I think that's a joke, but I can't tell. Usually when people post something sarcastic or funny, you'll need to write a little smiley face, winky face, a J/K for just kidding. Otherwise, we think maybe you don't understand. So hopefully it doesn't confuse others in the chat who read that stuff. I would not be here showing you an obsolete computer. We wouldn't waste our time. All right, let's see what else we have. John says a happy belated birthday to our friend Mitch Morrison. Yeah, Mitch just had his birthday last week, and he is going to join us tomorrow because he's got parts to build his own, what he calls birthday build. So that'll be fun to have Mitch back in Studio C. And we'll put him to work. Just be prepared for the terrible dad jokes. They're worse than mine. Eugene Ildago says hello. And let's see. Just want to take a minute to say hello to everybody. I'm sorry if I skip over anybody's name. I'm trying to get through this very quickly so we can get to our unboxing. There's our friend Planet Cryos with a $2 super chat. He says, I'm working on my old 1980s wheel horse lawnmower. I don't know what a wheel horse lawnmower is, but I know you can buy an electric lawnmower pretty cheap these days. And they're quieter, and you don't have to sit there and keep yanking on the cord to get them to start and deal with chokes and spark plugs and putting oil in the gas because it's just a 2-stroke engine. But I don't know. I'm assuming a wheel horse lawnmower is motorized. I know they have those push ones I don't know what those are called. Nick Poverman says he's got a dad joke. I gave my handyman a to-do list, but he only did jobs 1, 3, and 5 on the list. Turns out he only does odd jobs. Kelly Stewart joins us. Hey, Kelly, it's been a while. Good to see you, my friend. Thomas MacT says hello. Palmiro says hello from Scotland. Bathgate. Wow, that's 4 Scottish viewers. I'm going to have to move to Scotland. Apparently, that's where all my fans are. I seem to be appreciated more per capita in Scotland. I don't have a problem with that. Hey, Mara, you ready to go to Scotland? Feel like we'd be accepted there. Thank you guys for hanging out with us today. Let me move Darth Vader. I don't want to break him. Let's move him over here. What I want to show you today, the Reatan Silver9. First thing we want to do is go to the Amazon. What? You ready? She's going to freeze as soon as she steps off the plane. I mean, if it's below 90 degrees Fahrenheit, she's going to be shivering. I think she's part lizard. She's been in the desert too long. We'll have to get her a little terrarium with a heat lamp. She can rest on a rock. Let's go to Reatan's website and take a look at how they promote what we're going to look at today. These videos are live and unscripted, so I have no idea. I've got a vague idea of what's in the box, but that's it. As far as any details, there's really not much on YouTube regarding this. I think there's 1 or 2 videos, and they didn't really get as in-depth as I would have liked. So at the end of the day, we got to look at it ourselves. We got to do it ourselves and do the job that I would want to see if I were going to invest what's around $450, $460. I want to make sure I understand what I'm buying. So let's start there. Let's start with Reatan's website. Now we have the link. All the links we're going to show you are in the video notes below this video. So you can click on those links yourself anytime you want, or follow along with us, or just watch your screen as we're there now. So Reatan.com, and here we're looking at the Silver9. Now this is an all aluminum mini PC. It's not plastic like the one from yesterday. It's a little fancier, a little more Mac looking. It's the Intel i9-12900HK. That's a 3.6 gigahertz CPU. It's got 32 gigs of RAM. I don't know why it says flash memory. Perhaps we can have Mara send them a update and let them know in their what is likely Asian language. It has not been translated correctly to English. We see this quite often with these lesser known manufacturers. There's no harm meant in that. I think it's an honest misunderstanding of the language translation. It's got a 1 terabyte NVMe SSD. It is not a hard drive. So again, we have a translation problem here, which they just could have said SSD, but it's not a hard drive. It's a solid state drive. Pre-installed Windows 11 Pro. It'll support 3 displays at 4K each at the same time, and includes Wi-Fi 6 with Bluetooth 5.2. Now you can see with 32 gigs of RAM and 1 terabyte of storage, we're at $439. And if you cut the storage and RAM in half, you can drop it to under $400. So at $389 with 16 gigs of RAM and 512 gig of storage, that is one heck of a deal. Because if you price out just how much a 12900 processor is, in fact, let's just run over to Amazon and take a look. On Amazon's website, this is the product page. If you prefer to buy directly from Amazon, the Silver9 is offered there as well. There is a $40 coupon that'll bring that price to $469. Now remember, if you've ever sold anything on eBay or Amazon, you have to pay a commission on the sale. You pay that commission, in this case, to Amazon. So where's that money coming from? And if you're wondering why is there a price difference between, let's say you take that $40 off, you're at $469, but if you buy it directly, you're at $459. Where's that extra 10 bucks? It's going into paying Amazon commission. It might be worth it for you to pay the extra 10 bucks to get that peace of mind that you get that Amazon offers with regards to easy and free returns within 30 days for a $10 insurance policy. Or you could save the 10 bucks and see if Reatan may not ship as fast. Their customer service policy might be identical. I don't know.
With the Amazon link, that is a direct link to the promotion code. There's an additional 5% you can save.
How do you save the additional 5%?
You can either click the link and or use the coupon code.
Well, that'll take it down. Then that removes the commission from Amazon. Interesting. Okay, thank you for the info.
No problem.
And then, as Mara just explained, all of that's explained in our video notes below the video. So if I wanted to just price a 12900, not even a 12900K, just a 12900 Intel. Whoops, I mistyped it completely. It's the keyboard's fault. It wasn't me who did that. How much is this chip? So for you to build a, excuse me, a 12900 CPU is $412. Now, you'd say the 12900K is more powerful. Why is it so much cheaper? Because this has a really fancy heatsink included with it. The 12900 has that laminar cooler that is 40 or 50 bucks on eBay if you wanted to just buy this cooler. It's an all-metal RGB cooler. And that's why the 12900 costs significantly more versus buying the unlocked version of the CPU that runs a little bit faster for just without the cooler. You'd be on your own for a cooler for $90 less. Now, when you consider the 12900K is $323, and you go back and you look at this price again, and you're at $389. So for the extra $60, you're getting a motherboard, you're getting a cooler, you're getting storage, RAM, case, power supply, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and Windows 11 Pro. That's a hard deal to beat, assuming everything's good, which we're going to find out and verify. But if I didn't think it had the possibility and was likely going to be good, we probably wouldn't be looking at it. These are all the ports that are built into this. See if I can bring this up a little bigger here. Our power input, our HDMI, our USB Type-C. We've got a LAN jack here that we'll have to figure out if that's 1 or 2.5 gigs. And then we've got DisplayPort. So HDMI and DisplayPort plus the USB. That's your third video output if you want it to be. Plus 2 USB 2.0s. And on the front, you've got a reset BIOS. Recessed hole there that you'd use a paper clip or a SIM removal tool to reset. There is your power button. There's a 3.5 millimeter audio jack and 2 USB 3.2s. So when it comes to USB ports, you're not going to get a ton of USB 3 on this. However, you don't need USB 3 for your keyboard or your mouse or your speakers. That's a waste of a fast USB port. So I love the idea that they put the faster USB ports up front for things like flash drives or external SSDs where you want that faster data transfer, and let you plug your slower devices like your printers and keyboards and mice into the back where you're not constantly getting at them to unplug and replug them and using the slower ports. So with regards to ports, this isn't going to be the biggest set of ports that's available on mini PCs. However, at this price, it might be. Take a look at some of the other images. They talk about the 16 gig version here with the 512 gig solid state drive. They're saying this is single channel M.2. I don't know what that means. So we're going to have to run a speed test on this because single channel usually refers to memory, not to storage. And with storage, we're interested in how many lanes. Is it ×1? Is it ×2? Typically, it's ×4. So Gen 4 ×4 should result in speeds upwards of 7,300 megabytes per second. But on these OEM system integrated builds, they're usually buying these bulk-made Kingston drives. They usually sit somewhere in the middle, in the upper 4,000s, low 5,000 megabytes per second. They're far less expensive for the manufacturers to buy them in mass quantities at scale. So if what you're looking for is just the cutting edge of performance, this is definitely not the right machine for you. Obviously, we're using DDR5 memory now on the latest builds. DDR5 memory costs more. Faster, excuse me again. The faster NVMe drives with bigger storage cost more. You could easily spend the cost of this entire PC just going to a bigger solid state drive and RAM. If you wanted to upgrade it yourself, you could easily double your cost. So my recommendation is always buy these equipped the way you want them. And that way you don't have to worry about voiding any warranty or overspending by upgrading it to what you want it to be. They do offer various versions of this. And if they don't have one in the specs you like, look at other manufacturers. There's a lot of mini PCs to choose from today. So today we're just looking at this one to determine if it's something that might be an attractive solution to a problem, or that upgrade you've been putting off because you don't think you can afford it. And yeah, let me go back. Can I go back one more? Yeah, that takes us back here. And you'll notice there's, what is this for $12.99? Oh, that's a Nook 13. So do pay attention down at the bottom of the Amazon page of the different versions. I think we've got 32 gigs and 1 terabyte on the model they sent us for review. Now again, just to be fully transparent, Reatan asked us to review this any way we want to our standard on our timeline. They're welcome for any feedback, positive or negative. They have no say in how we make the video or what we say. We are not obligated to them in any other way other than essentially giving them our word that we will make a dedicated video to introduce this product to our audience and to give it an honest overview. So a lot of times when they send these, I don't pay too much attention to what's inside until it's time to look at it, because I'll never remember. So this one says Silver9, 32 gigs and 1 terabyte of RAM. So that's the version they've sent us. And let's start by removing the shrink wrap, right? I want you to see everything is genuine, authentic, transparent, live, unscripted, and unrehearsed. If there's a dead-on arrival product in here, we're both going to find out about it at the same time. That happens so rarely these days with modern automated manufacturing. And look, if that happens, no big deal anyway. It just means if something like that were to happen, we have a full 30-day return window, like if we bought this at Amazon. And beyond that, of course, you've got your regular warranty, and we would just have to postpone the video till a replacement came. You should never have to repair a brand new machine. If you order anything, I don't care what it is, and it requires you to fix it to make it work, send it back for a replacement in those first 30 days, because you might end up voiding your warranty and making things worse. And then you're probably going to have a bad taste in your mouth about the whole experience because you made a bad decision. When you buy something new, and especially from big retailers like Amazon, Newegg, Best Buy, etc., it should be 100% functional and flawless. If it isn't, send it back. All right? Don't be stubborn and try and fix it. Now, if you bought it at a garage sale and you're stuck with it, different story. All right, let's get this thing opened up. We'll see how it's packaged and what's in the box together. Let me jump over to the close-up camera. I guess I don't need that right. Let's go to the close-up camera right there. Okay, so here's... I'll never get used to the camera being backwards. Let's take a look. Slide the sleeve off of here. Sort of a plain box, doesn't really tell you what's in there. There is a sticker right here, but it doesn't really give us much information. Okay, inside, it looks like this. We have a nice thank you card with a support email address. If you have any problems, they want you to not have to dig around to figure out how you reach them. That's a classy touch. I like that. These two cards look eerily similar to what we see included in other mini PC brands. And then we have a small, like a quick start manual here. Then there's a little piece of foam there protecting the top of the mini PC. And we'll take this out. Take it out of its protective wrap here. Oh, this thing's tiny. Just like it shows on the website. Inside of the box, below this foam, we take that out. You'll see there's another box. We're going to lift this box out. Sometimes this is a box, and sometimes this is just a piece of cardboard covering. Which one do we have? Yeah, this is just a piece of cardboard that covers everything that's underneath of it here. So that kind of sits in the box like this, and then it closes down. And what's inside of it are our big power brick here. Oh, thank goodness it's not like yesterday's power brick. This is more of a laptop style 6.3 amp, 120 watts, 19 volts. So very commonly used on a lot of mini PCs and laptops. Not that they're necessarily interchangeable. And because this doesn't say Reatan on it anywhere, this would be easy if these two items got separated, that you wouldn't know which adapter went with this. So I would take a moment and use either a silver Sharpie or a label maker and write Reatan Silver9 on this. That way I know if they ever get separated where this goes. That's a pretty common thing with a lot of mini PC manufacturers, is these power bricks are made by an entirely different company. So therefore they don't have the manufacturer's name on it like the mini PC does. Right there on the lid, you can kind of see it's engraved in the lid. So I will take care of that. Also in the box, we have a short HDMI cable. We have a couple of extra feet right here, 2 extra feet. And then we've got a US style power plug that has the standard desktop tower connector, right? So it's not a 2-prong connector, it's a standard PC power connector. These have been common since 1981, and I'm glad to always see the standard followed, so that way if you can misplace this cable and find another one and they all work the same. Not like this, but this part of it is ubiquitous. A lot of different PC related items use that, especially most desktop computers. Since the invention of the desktop, well, the IBM PC, I should say. Okay, so with that, that's everything in the box. You'll see there's no VESA bracket. There's no added accessories in here. That's what you get. Now, personally, I've never used one of those VESA brackets, so I don't miss it if it's not in there. But that's just me. So if you decide to buy one, and that's important to you, well, that might not be the right one for you. All right, let's go back over to the wide angle here, and let's get this thing plugged in, turned on, powered up. So for that, we'll obviously need to plug in power. I need a keyboard and a mouse, which I keep right over here. Again, I want to use one of the slower USB 2 ports in the back for keyboard and mouse. As I've always jokingly said, you know, we're more and more I'm seeing in society where people want to buy the best of whatever it is, the fastest CPU, the fastest graphics card, as though that's going to make them more proficient at learning how to use their computer or playing their games better. It's so preposterous to me that people will spend money to buy expensive pots and pans thinking their cooking's going to taste any better. Or they're going to buy an expensive camera thinking their pictures are suddenly going to be better. Or they buy a more expensive car thinking that's going to make them a better driver. Or it's just this bizarre human behavior where people think, instead of actually doing the work, that you can spend some money and avoid doing the work. What people would pay, well, we already know what people would pay to lose weight by taking an injection or a pill versus diet, exercise, and discipline. And for years and years, companies promote supplements that claim to do all kinds of crazy things, and some people believe they work, and maybe they do. But I know what works every time for everyone, and that's putting the work in. It's not about outspending somebody else. That doesn't make you more proficient at that thing. It just means you had more money to spend. So plugging a keyboard into your fast USB port isn't going to make you type any faster. And I find it hilarious that this is so common online, where more money means somehow it makes up for your ineptness or it makes you better. It doesn't. You have to work on you. It's not something you open your wallet for unless it's to pay some trainer at the gym to get you to work out and exercise, and things you do through practice and by playing a game over and over, and you get your reaction speed up, your hand-eye coordination goes up. It's only after years and years and years of practice will you be playing an instrument on stage or performing in front of people. What you don't see happening behind the scenes are these people that are famous musicians, have been playing for years and years, every single day in most cases, before you even knew who they were, before they even got to a point where they were good enough for it to be even worth your listen. And it didn't matter if they bought a Les Paul, a Gibson, or a Fender guitar. If you don't know how to play the guitar, it's still going to sound like crap. Now, once they've made it, right, now they've got all this money, now for fun, they can go buy these fancy electric guitars, and they know how to play them, and they're always going to make them sound good. In fact, if they came over to your house, just some musician comes over to your house, some famous musician, and you had a guitar, any kind of guitar, classical guitar, electric guitar, you go, hey, could you play something on this for me? And you've never heard that guitar sound good. I guarantee you that musician could pick up that guitar and make it sing like it was effortless. So I just want you to keep that in mind, that the computer can do so much and your wallet can only go so far, depending on what it is you're trying to achieve. So let's be reasonable and understand that sometimes where the performance upgrade needs to take place is up in here, and there's really nothing money can do. It's something you have to put the effort in, and when you make that investment, you and you alone receive the reward. And if you're not willing to do that, and you just continue with the mindset of spending more money and getting better equipment, but not necessarily getting more proficient in using that equipment, you're just going around in circles. And you have every right to do that. I just want you to make you aware of that flaw in that philosophy. And it's so common online. I just find it amusing, because if life were that easy, well, I could just buy my way to success, which is ironic when you think about it. If I could afford, if that were an option and I could afford to buy my way to success, what would be the point of the success? I'd already be successful before I started. Anyway, let me get on my soapbox. Let's get an HDMI cable plugged in here. We're not plugging the internet into it on our first boot as we set up Windows. We don't want it to force us to create an online account with Microsoft. I don't. You might. I don't. And then I need to give this power here. So we'll just grab our standard PC power cable that I keep down here for all of our builds. That's why I'm a fan that they've stuck to the standard here. I don't have to do anything special. I don't have to worry about cable length limitations. Plug that in like that. And we'll hit the power button. Power button goes blue. And let me switch the input over to the output of this machine, and we'll watch it boot up together for the very first time. Okay, here we go. Planet Cryos contributed a $5 super chat. He said his wheel horse lawnmower from the 1980s is a 48-inch deck lawnmower, and I have to mow about an acre. There's no way I'm going to push to mow that. I would think you'd want a riding lawnmower. When I was in Michigan, I kept hearing riding lawnmowers, and I saw the guy across the street mow his lawn like twice in the same week. And I thought, wow, they're mowing awfully frequently. Then it occurred to me, I think he just likes riding the lawnmower. I think he thinks it's fun. It's like a little go-kart. Davis Parsons renewed his membership, now a member for 34 months. He says, hello to everyone in the chat. We have a wind warning here in north central Texas. Thank you, Davis. Thank you for renewing your membership here. 34 months. That's a long time. We appreciate you. So this is the proper out-of-box experience you should get out of a new PC, be it a mini PC, a laptop, or a desktop. And we go through the standard process of selecting our language and region, which for us is English in the United States. And then it'll ask us, well, that's the region there. Yeah, United States. The keyboard is going to be a US style keyboard. You can have 2 different styles of keyboard or more. We don't want to add any other layout, just English. We're Americans, simple folks. Don't have internet, and I'll tell it twice. Because if I tell it I have internet or I get it signed up on Wi-Fi, it's going to require that Microsoft account being made. And there are workarounds to that, but I don't want to work that hard. So we just leave the internet unplugged right now as we go through the setup. Then it asks for a username for a local account instead of a Microsoft account. So I'm going to put just the name user, hit enter, and I'm going to leave the password blank so it boots right up to the desktop. For those of you who watch the channel regularly, you know what I'm about to do here and why. And if anybody doesn't understand that, just ask in the chat room and they'll explain it to you. And with these settings now done, Windows can finish its first time setup. It's likely going to boot us into 4K resolution, which is very difficult for me to see. So one of the first things I'm going to do when we get in there is drop that resolution to 1920 by 1080. And then we'll plug the Ethernet cable into it, get it online, and check for updates. And while we're doing that, we'll look at the system properties and see and verify how this is equipped and what things look like in the device manager that we're waiting. While I'm doing all of that coming up, if you have questions for me or questions about the unit, this will be the time to put those questions in the chat room so I can research or look up the details of it to get you the answers you're looking for. And also watch our chat room for answers to your questions, because we have a lot of very knowledgeable people in our community that are more than happy to help you. If you're watching this video live and you're not participating in our chat room, you are missing out. These videos are so much more fun, and you can't possibly imagine what you're missing if you've never done it before. Pop into the live chat, say hello. All you have to do is say hello and watch what happens. Friendships develop. It's crazy. At the same time, pop into the chat room and be rude and watch how fast you get booted out, because we don't want anybody to poison our well. We have a like-minded community here of kind and supportive individuals of all races, genders, ages, belief systems. But the one thing they all have in common is they are the nicest people you will ever meet in a community of this size on the internet. And for you to voluntarily not be a part of that, well, that's your own self-punishment, because we'd love to have you. There's no such thing as having too many kind individuals. So it doesn't matter if you're smart or dumb or old or young, just be kind. Come on in, say hello. Watch what happens next. We'd love to have you. All right, let me just quickly change my settings here. Display settings to 1920 by 1080, because this is way too small for me to read. Keep those changes. And the other thing I want to do is check my power settings, because I don't want the computer going to sleep on me while we're updating. And by default, it's set to never. That's good. So with that, let me grab my Ethernet cable, and I'm going to plug the, well, cable's wrapped up here. Let's plug the Ethernet cable in the back, and we'll see what kind of speed connection we get while we're checking for updates, what kind of network card we've got, and overall status of the device manager. In just a moment, I'll see that little globe become a little screen as it communicates with the router and negotiates an IP address. That just takes a few seconds, and that's already done. And while it's updating or checking for updates, we'll keep it busy, or we'll keep ourselves occupied by taking a look at some of those specs, because we can multitask, right? All right, so first things first, our connection. Let's go to network and internet settings. Under Ethernet 2, what's our status? right here should tell us our upload and download. Our link speed is what I mean to say. We're connected to a 2.5 gig. I take it back. I'm plugged into a 10 gig port. So that means that this is a 2.5 gig LAN adapter on the back of the mini PC. So much better than a 1 terabyte. I don't even think most home users use 2.5 gig, to be honest, but you're ready if you want to. I'm going to change that to a private network too. Okay, let's right click on the start button and let's go to system and let's take a look at our specs. There's the 12th gen 12900HK. So it's at 2.5 gig, but it can turbo up as needed. We've got 32 gigs of RAM that's already pre-installed from the manufacturer running Windows 11 Pro, but it is an older version of Windows 11 Pro. Remember, this is an older chip, and likely when this was made, Windows 22H2 would have been the version currently of Windows. And then in the fall of 2023, they came out with 23H2. This would have been the fall of 2022. And now, since we reached the fall of 2024, that's the most recent fall we've experienced, the current version of Windows 11 Pro is 24H2. As you can imagine, this coming fall, in 2025, there will likely be an update, and so it will go until Microsoft changes things up. That will bring us to 25H2. So if we were having this discussion a year from now, you would be able to continue to upgrade this computer as it continues to meet all of the specs required for Windows 11, regardless if it's 22, 23, 24, 25H2, etc. So to do that, really we don't even need to check for updates. If I want to do this the most time-consuming way possible, then what it's going to do is it's going to provide us with a ton of updates that we're missing, and then it's going to offer us 23H2. And then we'll check for updates, and there's going to be a bunch of updates to 23H2, and then it's going to offer us 24H2. And these are big updates. The 23H2 and the 24H2 are very large, and they will happen automatically in the background. But I recommend if you're just buying a brand new computer, the first thing you need to do to it is get those updates before you start loading up your software and using it. To not get these updates leaves you profoundly vulnerable online, and attacks are happening constantly, and they happen in milliseconds. I don't care what antivirus or what firewall or what router you're using. There are exploits through Windows services. There are exploits in every piece of software and browser you use that, if not patched, leave you vulnerable, and your whole system can be compromised in milliseconds. By the time you blinked your eyes, it's already happened. So what you want to do the first time you get the machine fired up is get those updates installed pronto. High priority item. Now, because we're 2 versions behind on Windows, we don't have to do all of these updates. But since it started, I'm going to let it finish. Instead, what I can do is download the Microsoft Installation Assistant. So we're going to Microsoft Windows Installation Assistant. So we're going to fire up our browser here for the first time. And I'm just going to type in just a generic search of download Windows 11. Now, of all the results that show up, the top ones should be taking us to Microsoft. We're not pirating this. We want it directly from the manufacturer. And this second link right here says download Windows 11, and it's coming from, pay attention to where the link is, Microsoft.com. This is real. Click on that, and we want this Windows 11 Installation Assistant. So hit download now, and you'll see in the upper right corner, it downloaded this little tiny file super fast. By doing this, we can skip all those other previous updates. So while it's updating unnecessarily in the background at this point, again, we're multitasking. Let's get this started. It says we need the PC Health Check app to see if we qualify for the requirements for Windows 11 Pro. So download the PC Health Check app. That's, again, a short little download. And then click on it to execute it. Agree to the license agreement, hit install, and finish. See how fast this computer is? Everything's just real snappy. We hit the check now button, and it should come up and tell us everything's good. We got the green check, so we can close everything out. You can close out the browser. And back to this Windows 11 installation assistant, we can refresh the results. And it says, oh yeah, you're good to go now got the green light to install Windows 11 24H2. But right now, again, I don't want to put an update on while other updates are going on. That's a recipe for disaster. So I want to wait for these first round of updates to complete. And when we reboot, I'm going to restart the Windows 11 installation assistant, and it should pick up right where we left off. So for now, I'm just going to decline this, and it just sends it away. And you'll see all of these have already completed, so we're almost done here. I'm kind of regretful that I even started this. However, once I started it, see it through. It's like if you're driving and you pull into a right or left turn lane, you are committed to making that turn. You don't get to change your mind and just switch lanes out of a dedicated turn lane into a lane that's got traffic going through it. It's a great way to get into a car accident, and it would be your fault. It's called committing. So when you started it, commit to it, see it through, and do whatever you need to do. A U-turn in the case of the car, or a reboot in the case of an update. It's a few minutes of your life versus hours and hours and hours of you being impatient. You got to love the irony. Haste makes waste. People get impatient. They don't want to wait to 2 or 3 minutes. So instead, they'll spend 2 or 3 days fixing the errors on Windows because they forced it, shut it down, or did something because they couldn't wait 2 or 3 minutes. Now it's going to be 2 or 3 days. Always makes more sense to just take a breath, let it go. When it's ready, then begin your process, and you will be far more successful, and you will save more time and frustration than trying to rush through it. Slow and steady wins the race every time. Speed running your Windows 11 install, not a good idea unless you find that as some form of entertainment. In the meantime, let me jump over to our chat room and see if there were any questions here for me while we're waiting. Nick Poverman mentions I can use my flash drive. I have a Windows 11 media installation installer, and I've shown you guys how to make that for free, and it's all legal. And I could plug that flash drive in, and I could install through that flash drive. But that doesn't really help 99% of my viewers that have no idea where I got that, how I make it, and how I use it. So the reason that I show you how to do this all online is I'm assuming you don't have a flash drive that's big enough. You don't even know what that even means. I'm just trying to give the general population the information that will get them consistently the same to the point I want them to get at without any specialty tools or knowledge. Now, for those of you who are at that higher level, please bear in mind that my channel is dedicated to helping those who are the general PC users, right? That's who I'm out to talk to. And if you've been watching me for a while, you've already surpassed the general knowledge of the average computer user simply by watching and learning my videos. But please make no mistake or misjudgment that you did not always know that, whatever it is you know. And there are hopefully lots of other viewers for the very first time learning about 24H2, learning about this process. And we want to make that as uncomplicated and simple as possible so that they can say, oh yeah, that's easy, I can do that. I don't want to conflate and confuse them with a whole different process for creating an installation media tool that they may not ever need again, and they may not have a flash drive that can do it. It gets more complicated, it can take more time to make it, and then they might be discouraged and say, that's too much trouble, I'm not going to do it. So do bear in mind that when I offer the advice to my audience, I am assuming that the audience is here to learn. And if you already know things, that's great. Then we were successful. But understand, lots of viewers haven't learned yet. But we want to give everybody a chance to start with no basis other than they can turn the machine on. I bought this machine, let's say. Now Carey says, I should update it. How do I do that? What should I be looking for? And we're going to make that as minimal and trivial of a process as possible to encourage people to do that. It's an important thing to do. and to take away any barriers of difficulty that might, discourage them from wanting to do that. It's too much effort. You know what I mean? So, well, Nick, what you say is true. I don't think it's very useful to people who don't have that knowledge or experience. And to start them there, they probably just give up. They'd say, you know what, never mind. I thought you said this was going to be easy. It's already too much trouble. And we don't want to, we need people to sort of warm up and see if they come back for more, and then we build on that knowledge. So, but yeah, what you said is absolutely true, but just impractical for the purposes of educating people in this channel. All right, let's see. Stevie Zundart says, good evening from the Netherlands. Welcome in, Stevie. Rick wants to know, how's Mitch doing? I hope he's well. Well, you can ask him yourself tomorrow. He'll be here as we do a birthday build with Mitch here in Studio C, live tomorrow at 1 o'clock Phoenix time. Hopefully you'll hang out with us in the live chat. Graham Edwards says hello from the UK. Welcome in, Graham. Scott Loosemore said, I had a heated argument about loaning a PC to a friend, so learn my lesson in who my true friends are. Yeah, well, that's unfortunate. When you loan something to somebody and you don't get it back in a timely manner or in the same condition it was loaned to you, the best thing I can tell you is you got to wait cheap. Whatever that was worth, it could have been so much worse. And the sooner you find that information out about that person, the minute you can stop the bleeding, future losses. Consider yourself lucky and consider the lesson an inexpensive one. Yeah, that's probably the best way to look at it, in my opinion. It's happened to all of us. All right, let's see. I hear the fan cranking up over here as the downloads are installing. Some of these install updates are quite resource intensive, apparently. But it's not too loud, but it's enough to let you know it's working harder than idle, for sure. But it's very, very subtle fan noise. Nick Poverman said, Mitch shares a birthday with my uncle who's turning 100 years old tomorrow. Wow, that's amazing. 100 years old. All right, let me go back over to, I got to see what my progress is over here. It is doing an install of a cumulative update, but we don't have to wait for that. I'll go ahead and hit restart now and let it go through its process. And then what I'm going to do on the reboot is run that Windows 11 installation assistant so we can skip over the rest of the updates. Like I said, Microsoft is going to want to put you through 23H2 and then more updates, and then 24H2 and then more updates. That will work, but it's going to be a while. Now understand, if you don't want to go through all this process, buy a newer computer. And when I say buy a newer computer, what I'm telling you is spend more money. You don't have to eat at McDonald's. If you want a fancy steakhouse, all you have to do is spend more money. Nobody is saying you can't have that. These are your decisions to make, but have the proper expectations when you walk into McDonald's that that's not a steakhouse. Otherwise, you may not be a happy customer because you had unrealistic expectations. It's called being unreasonable. Now, I think for the discounted price on this, to have to spend a little bit of time putting on free updates, I'll take that deal every day of the week. Because once it's done, once it's at 24H2, you don't have to do that again. Then you're just getting your regular second Tuesday of the month updates. Like, speaking of which, just the other day, it was the second Tuesday of the month, and there were a bunch of updates released for Windows 10 and Windows 11 machines. I'm hearing there are some issues with one of the updates installing properly on Windows 11, though I've not witnessed it. And Mitch had a problem with an update failing to install on a Windows 10 computer, and he was asking me how to fix it. And I said, look, this was Wednesday, this was yesterday. I said, Mitch, this update literally came out 24 hours ago. There's no information about it. I can't help you with it, but you have two solutions. One is we just go ahead and put Windows 11 on it, or two, just wait, and we'll see if this is a widespread problem that other people are having problems with, or at least if enough people have had problems that they've discussed it and found a solution. In the meantime, you know, it literally just came out 24 hours ago. So whatever it does, don't worry about it right now. We generally want those updates within 30 days, but you don't need it within 24 hours. And in some cases, Microsoft may recall an update or update an update. So all you have to do is wait in many of these situations and the problem solves itself. In the meantime, we just don't know yet. It's too soon. And that's the only complaint I've had with an update not installing in quite some time. And, you know, could be anything. Could be a corrupt file in his Windows directory or registry entry. It could be a driver-related incompatibility. It could be so many different things. And when he does get the update installed, he won't notice any difference. It's not like there's some feature that doesn't work or some new feature that's being introduced. He just likes to see all the updates installed. And I think that's an admirable quality. I like to see all the updates installed too. But right now we have very limited information as to how widespread, or if it's widespread, this issue is. But give it a little bit of time. Remember, speed running through it, it's not the way to solve problems. Be patient. Allow things to have some time to ferment. And there gets to be a level of, at least on the internet, shared knowledge that builds over time, especially when something never existed before Tuesday. To the general public, on Monday, there wasn't anything to discuss in this regard. And then on Tuesday, if people got their updates on Tuesday, and if some of those people had a problem, then that would lead to a forum post Tuesday night or Wednesday. And other people still haven't gotten the update yet, so they don't even know that it's failed or not. That still hasn't happened for a lot of people. And as more and more people install that update, if there's a certain number of people that are affected through a failure of that update installing, then the search engine is going to point us to those discussion threads. And following those discussion threads, we can see what people have tried and if anything has worked. And while all of that's going on, it's possible Microsoft releases an update to that update or pulls the update entirely if they realize it's something on their end that there was an oversight. So wait and see. I'm not saying you wait forever, but be reasonable. Give it a little time to develop, and that'll be working so much easier. You won't have to work as hard and you won't have to be as frustrated. Just let it go and follow up with it in about a week. All right, let me look at how we're doing over here. Did we update? Oh, we're updating some big update, 21%. We'll just, again, I don't want to put an update on like a Windows 24 H2 update at the same time other Windows 22 H2 updates are being installed. I'm not even sure Microsoft will let you do it. So in this case, because we're trying to update Windows while we're updating Windows, the updates can interfere with the other updates. They may not, but I don't even want that possibility, because that impatience may end up borking the machine and I have to do a complete reinstall from scratch and reload all the drivers. And that means my impatience is going to make it take 3 times longer. Don't you love impatience? It's the exact opposite. It's like saying, I don't have the time to wait for this. It's taking too long. So instead, I want to wait 3 times longer. Why would you make that decision? I do it myself sometimes, just trying to share a philosophy with you that I hope you consider to make life a little less frustrating. And of course, we have our free message board here at careyholzman.boards.net. And if you have any problems or concerns with anything, please reach out. It's completely free. It's open 24/7. And if I bring it up on the screen here, we go to a new browser window. And there's a link in the video notes, careyholzman.boards.net, not careyholzman.com. careyholzman.boards.net. Hit enter, and then you will log in. You create a free account. There's no money. You just need an email address. That's it. And we don't even care what your email address is. We're not interested in emailing you. If you email us, that's different. We'll reply to you. But if you want to engage with our community and look for help, this message form is for you. Now, let me tell you, one of the frustrating places that I'm in is I have viewers who are so self-confident that they are too proud, or they're so smart that it never occurs to them to ask for help. They think, I'm not doing anything wrong. The problem was with the product. And now I'm going to write a comment because I'm pissed off at my own ignorance, and I'm going to blame a company or a service because I didn't ask for help. And because I failed on my own and I did not ask anybody to help me, I am pissed off at the product or service. And I want everybody to know to avoid that product or service because of how terrible it is. Well, look, in some cases, that kind of response is justifiable. However, in our community, when I see somebody post something profoundly just incorrect because they have a fundamental misunderstanding of how things work, and it never occurs to them to ask for verification if they're understanding things correctly or if there's something they're overlooking, that tells you a lot about a person. What I want to see people do is ask for help if you're having issues, and assume right out of the gate you're missing something. The issue by default should be you. And what you want to do is go online to communities such as our forum or even here in our chat room and verify, is it me? It's a real easy thing to do. Am I wrong, or is this broken? And then what a lot of times I find is people don't know how to use the thing. And so when you educate them and say, this is what you're doing wrong, then they're like, oh, I feel like an idiot. Okay, well, that's okay because you asked. But when people don't ask and they immediately jump onto the negative and demonize everything, and they become very persecutory and punitive, that's unjustifiable, and they remain completely ignorant. And what they're doing is they're tilting at windmills. They're shouting at the sky. It's like, dude, this is on you. If we fix you, this imaginary problem you have goes away. And we want to help. But if you never asked us, and the first time we ever see or hear from you is you've got to say this product or this service is terrible and avoid it. We want to know, what's your experience? What led you to that? And let's verify you're using it correctly and that you have reasonable expectations of what that product is supposed to do. No harm. We're not going to make fun of you. But if you jump right in with that conclusion without ever verifying from the community if you're understanding it correctly, yeah, we just might make fun of you. Because that's a terrible attitude. And you just go through life defending your ignorance, which is profound on the internet. It's just everywhere. And we're trying, at least I'm trying here on the channel, to empower people to be more self-reliant and to not be stuck going, well, I don't know where to ask. I don't know where to go for help. You do. If you're here, we're here to help you. But if you never give us that opportunity and you come to some conclusion that something is broken, it may not be broken. It might be, but let's verify it first. And then we can even advise you on the next steps to take. And we're happy to do that completely for free if you would afford us that simple opportunity to assist. So just bear that in mind. And yeah, we get some crazy comments sometimes that are so disconnected from reality. It's almost like people are living on different planets. It's sort of like, you know, hey, I bought this computer, but my car won't start. What made you think that was going to start your car? I mean, it's so bizarre. And not that that's an exact example. It's hyperbole. It's an exaggeration of events that are so preposterous. It's hard to believe that that person is serious. And for all I know, maybe they're trying to yank my chain. And they go, you want to see something funny? I'm going to write something stupid on the chat room that's just completely unreasonable and watch how this guy reacts. You know how I react? I hit the delete button. I can't waste my time. If somebody wants to defend their ignorance that hard, I can just tell you in a video, you are welcome to come in here and ask whatever questions you have to verify if what you are assuming is accurate. And we can help you regardless. In the meantime, people that just come to those conclusions, they've never been a part of our community, they only come in to complain and then they go, good riddance to them. They're of no use to society in that sense of helping the community. That's not helping anybody by telling people to stay away from a product or service because you didn't understand how it worked. But that's what people do all the time. You can read a few Amazon reviews and you'll see some of these reviewers had completely unreasonable expectations. And I'm not talking about this, I'm just talking about in general. So just be aware, this is how the internet is, and you have to filter out the nonsense and the crazies. I can't do that for you. So I hope when you're reading things online, you're considering the source of that information. Is it a familiar source? Or is it just a random name somewhere? And why are you choosing to believe them? At least verify. When you get to know a familiar source, a trusted source, that verification isn't required anymore once you've established some form of history. Let's see, did we finish our updates over here? I imagine we, what is it doing? It says no signal. Is it still rebooting? What is it doing? I think it's reboot. Yeah, it's rebooting. So that whole time I'm yapping, it was finishing installing those updates. And remember, that's not even 23H2 yet, which is an even bigger update. It looks like it's restarted again. Finally, we get us up to the desktop here. And when I get to the desktop, let me make this full screen over here for me. Let's take a right click on the start button. I'm sure we're still on 22H2. Yeah, we're still on 22H2. So let's skip over 23H2. Let's go right to 24H2. So we'll go over to the Windows 11 Installation Assistant, which should be down here at the W's. Not there. Let's just search for it. Windows. Hello, keyboard. Wrong keyboard, Carey. Windows. Like, maybe if I just type the word install. That's not working. Windows installation. Where did it go? Wants us to download it again? Well, let's just do it this way. Thought it would be in our installed programs. And me being impatient, I'm just going to go to our downloads and run it again. It's probably still in there and I'm just overlooking it. Accept and install, that's all I have to do. Now at this point, this is all free, this is all legal, legitimate. This is going to take us from Windows 11 22H2 to Windows 11 24H2. When that update completes, we need to restart the computer and grab any updates since this big update, which includes the updates from Tuesday. After that, we should be good and updated, and the last thing we want to check is our chipset drivers. So if you have an AMD based computer, you want to download the latest AMD Adrenalin software, and if you have an Intel based computer, the latest Intel chipset software. And that's it. Aside from that, now you've got a computer that is properly updated with all the latest features and all the latest protections so that you can now begin to install your applications, your printers, set up your email, and just continue to move forward. Don't look back. Once you get everything set up, I highly recommend you make a system image backup of it. Something like Acronis. It's free to use Acronis to make backups. Let me rephrase. It's free for 15 or 30 days to use Acronis to make a full system image. After that, you have to pay for it if you want to make more backups. But you can always restore the backup you made at any point in the future for free with Acronis. So your backup may be out of date, in other words, in 2 years if you need to restore it, but you have that option. If for some reason you don't want to buy the software, they'll always let you restore that free backup you made during the trial. And of course, there's a lot of other ways that you can back up a computer or image a computer. Acronis is just the way I use. I don't know all of the ways. I don't need to. I found a product I like, that I'm familiar with, that's affordable, consistent, and reliable, and that's the product I use. If I find myself disappointed by price, availability, compatibility, that the product becomes difficult to use, then I'll be in the market to look for a replacement. But why would I want to replace it when I'm totally happy with all of it? So for that reason, I personally use Acronis because that's what I personally use. That's what I'm familiar with, and that's what I'm recommending to you guys. If you go out and do something else, you're welcome to use any backup software you want. I just won't be much help to answer any questions about it because I probably never heard of it before, or I've never actually used it before. But you can always go back to the forums, and we might have other members in the community who can help you there in that case scenario. What I do care about is that you make an image backup when you're done, and that hopefully you never need it. But I can almost guarantee if you don't make the image backup, at some point you will need it. That's just a Murphy's Law thing. I don't know how that works. But better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. I see Andy Kane's joining us. So Andy, yesterday you were telling us you were updating the BIOS to a motherboard, and you were concerned about a chipset driver. So what motherboard was that, and did you get it all done, or what's the status of that? Kind of left me hanging yesterday. I gotta know. Mitch Morrison joins us here in the chat. What did the candy bar say to his therapist? Sometimes I feel like a nut, sometimes don't. Well, I guess our older crowd can appreciate that joke. You might have to explain it to Gen Z. Peter Laycock and Barry Klein saying hello to Mitch, as well as David Graham says hello there, and Jonathan. That's what I'm talking about in this community, right? You come in, you're new here, maybe you feel awkward about it, just say hello, watch what happens. And the more you do that, the more names become recognizable to you, and so many more people will start saying hello the more often they see you, and you're gonna feel like if you're not here, the party can't get started. And it all starts with you popping in one time and simply saying hello. And I'm telling you, these videos are so much better when you're interacting with myself and each other during these live streams than watching them after the fact. Let's see how we're doing over here. Installing. So you'll see this installation is moving very quickly compared to yesterday where we had a much lower end system. This computer is about 2.5 times more money, and it's running, I'd say, better than 2.5 times faster. So definitely still a good value for the money, but depending on what sort of budget you have, you might not have a choice. But if you do have a choice, this is definitely a better value, but it's going to cost you more. Kevin says, I only ask for help when I'm stuck. Well, and that's what we want you to do. We want you to try first. Try on your own first. Because we're not, somebody's butler. Try on your own, and if you get stuck or hung up somewhere, that's when you come in and ask for help. We'd love that. And again, we're going to point you on how to solve that on your own. We're not offering to do it for you, but we're offering to help put you back up on your feet so you can continue to move forward. And if you have that mindset that you're the kind of person that wants to be self-reliant and help yourself, you just need a little push in the right direction or someone to point out the right direction. We are so happy to do that. It's so enjoyable to watch people grow and become part of the community where they're now helping others. Like, oh, I just went through that myself. And they have a unique perspective where they might be able to explain it better versus somebody who's been doing it for 30 years and I've explained it 10,000 times. At some point when it's just occurred to you what your misunderstanding was that got you hung up and now you understand it, you're in a great position to explain it in a much clearer way to somebody else who was who is now in that position that you were just in yesterday or last week, after 10 years goes by, it gets a little harder to explain it with the same level of detail because so much time has passed. And sometimes the communication is less effective due to the how fresh the wound is, let's say. So we love it. Users helping users, that's what we're all about. Mara says, Mitch, you should see the thumbnail I created for tomorrow. It's pretty fun. You know what? I haven't even seen the thumbnail Mara created for tomorrow. We updating? Yeah, so that last, 78% to 100% could take 15, 20 minutes. But we'll see. It could sail through that much quicker. The good news is it's not failing. Everything's running exactly like it's supposed to. And while we're waiting, in fact, let me go over into the device manager on this machine here because I'm curious what kind of network card it has. Is it Intel? Is it Realtek? So let's go over here and grab my other mouse and right click on the start button, and we'll go to device manager. And I want to see under network devices, what do we have? It's an Intel i226. I love it when I get Intel network cards. I just find their drivers to be far more solid than Realtek or, well, I would say the Marvell drivers are solid as well, but that's 10 gig networking. It's a different beast. For the most part, I don't really have many problems with Realtek drivers, but sometimes getting a Realtek driver can be difficult and their website can be slow to get an updated driver. Intel's just a bigger, faster site. And yeah, I'm always happy to see an Intel-based LAN adapter. MediaTek, on the other hand, is the one I don't want to see. That's the Wi-Fi card. And the reason I don't want to see MediaTek is MediaTek does not have a public-facing website for drivers. MediaTek will tell you if you need drivers from your Wi-Fi, go to your manufacturer. We don't provide them. I think that's bogus because Intel provides them and Realtek provides them, even though Intel doesn't make this Reatan mini PC and Realtek doesn't make this mini PC. They would still provide you the drivers while advising you it's probably a better idea to get the driver from your manufacturer. They still say if you want it anyway, you can get it. But MediaTek does not do that. There is no public site-facing download driver support for MediaTek from MediaTek. You are forced to get your driver from the manufacturer. And if your manufacturer hasn't updated the driver and MediaTek has, how would you ever know? And this is what happens on the Intel and Realtek side, is sometimes the Intel network card drivers and the Realtek network card drivers get updated by these manufacturers, but the manufacturers of the PC are not paying their developers to update the website and update the download servers with different versions of drivers just because they're new versions. They're paying these employees all this money, the manufacturers of the PCs, and they have a stable of PCs. You can't just put all your resources into one you sold 2 years ago. So what they do is they go, that's the working driver we support, and that's that. And if you want to get the latest driver from the chip manufacturer, we don't advise it. You're on your own. We don't support it. And it's not because there's anything wrong with it. They don't want to make the financial investment in research and development and pay the employees for the testing, the support and training, as well as provide an update to the website and update to the web downloads page, if you will, the server, to make these files available. It gets really confusing. So for the average general public, for the most part, those driver downloads never change versions unless there is a support reason where tech support would advise you, go to our website and download the latest driver. That very rarely happens. Now, I like having the latest network card drivers. I like having the latest video card drivers. I like having the latest chipset drivers. This is critical if you want your machine to operate at best performance and reliability. So you can imagine how frustrated I am that I cannot get MediaTek drivers directly from MediaTek. Now, in most cases, you can take the network card out and replace it with a different brand. We'll have to open this mini PC up and see. And if it's that important to you to be able to update drivers, that could be a possibility to spend 25 bucks on a, Intel-based laptop-style network card, M.2 network card. On the other hand, is it necessary? Is that more of an OCD thing versus an actual technical issue you're trying to resolve? That may be more something a psychologist could help me with. Maybe a prescription bottle might help me with. So I've just learned to accept it. If it's MediaTek, it's fine. I've never had an issue where I had to update a MediaTek driver to fix anything, but I don't like that the option doesn't exist. That's all I'm saying. If something happens where I need this driver, the only driver I can get is from Reatan. That's it. And if it were literally anybody else that makes that network card, that wouldn't be an issue. I hope MediaTek changes their perspective, and I hope they provide drivers in the same way Realtek and Intel do on their wired and wireless LAN cards. But I'm not in charge over there, and they don't know who I am. They're not going to care what I have to say. Pablo says, I love the show, mate. Hi from the UK. What's the best desktop backup software? Well, I think we just answered that. I use Acronis, but again, that's me. Use whatever you like. I like to make sure that people know they should be backing their computer up. I don't care how you do it. I hope you do it frequently. I hope you have more than one backup, but I hope you at least have one backup. How you do it, what software you use, or how often, that's on you. Whatever you like, for whatever reasons you like it, just make a backup. Rick tells Mitch not to forget his Toto shirt. Which one? Which of his 63 Toto shirts? Oh, the wind is picking up. It's 2:30 p.m. here in Phoenix. We were told 100% chance of rain. Now it's looking like it might rain. And if it rains, it's probably going to come down sideways with the wind blowing like that. And that's what the news was warning us about, heavy storms. So let's see. We'll keep an eye on it. Keep you informed on the weather report of Phoenix. Nick Poverman said he's going to see Mitch's favorite band on the 25th, July 25th in New Jersey. It'll be the 5th time that Nick has gone to see Toto. Oh, Mitch, you got some competition. Regage that he saw Sammy Hagar, Best World Tour, back in August, and it was fun. My first concert was Foreigner, and they were promoting Jukebox Hero, the Foreigner 4 album. And what's neat is somebody's got a YouTube video up of that concert, maybe not in Phoenix, but it's the same concert where they blow up this, not blow up, they inflate this giant jukebox on stage when they sing Jukebox Hero. And I'll never forget it because, you know, back in 1981, 82, whenever year this was, and that was my first real concert. It was an arena, Veterans Memorial Coliseum, completely sold out. I'd never been to a concert before. I went by myself, and my ears were ringing for 3 days. 3 days. Wow, I've never heard music that loud in my life. And it was a great concert. Now I've been to so many concerts I couldn't name them all anymore, but I'll never forget my first. And it's a shame to listen to Foreigner today because they don't. There's like one original band member, Mick Jones, and the others have all been replaced. And they have a new lead singer, Kelly Hansen, and he looks like he should be the lead singer for an Aerosmith type band. And he doesn't try to imitate the lead singer, Lou Gramm. He doesn't do that. He does his own thing. I respect that, but at the same time, I can go see a foreigner cover band for $10 at the local casino that sounds, in my opinion, 10 times better, simply because I want to hear it the way I remember it. I don't want somebody else's interpretation on it. But it's nice to see they still perform. But it's just shocking how sometimes the cover bands can be better than the way the bands sound 40 years later. And certain bands still sound great. Rolling Stones still sound great. Toto, I saw a video of Toto live that might have been a year old. They still sound fantastic live. And unfortunately, I've seen the degradation of some of the iconic 1980s singers that still perform today and have lost their voices. Folks like Howard Jones. Seems like a really nice guy, but he can't sing anymore. Folks like Lou Gramm can't sing anymore. He lost his rhythm. He's so off. When a singer sings, they should be using their voice as an instrument. So if the instrument's coming in at the wrong time, if the notes are being held for too long, if the drums aren't striking in time, it messes the whole song up. And if a singer isn't singing on time, to me it's the same. It's under my skin. Like, you're off. You came in late, you stayed too long. Your voice is an instrument. It should be played with the same precision as every instrument in the band. And if you can't do that anymore, for whatever reason, maybe time to let someone else do it, accept your fate. Poor Huey Lewis. Huey's got Meniere's disease, and he can't hear right. So when the rhythm is pounding, and he's trying to get his time for knowing when to sing and whether or not he's even in key, he explains he hears a loud crashing sound in his ear. Instead of a bass beat, he hears a staticky crash. And he can't figure out. I mean, you want to talk about a Twilight Zone. I mean, this guy's doing exactly what he loves. He loves nothing more in the world than singing. It's all he ever wanted to do. He still wants to do it today, but his ability to do it, like in some cruel episode of The Twilight Zone, has given him an ear disease that prevents him from doing the one thing he has dedicated his life to. Life can be so cruel sometimes. Don't get me on the subject of music. We'll be there a while. But let's see how our update's going. 84%. I do hear the fan cranking up a little bit at this point on the install, but again, apart from knowing that it's working harder, it's not annoying or overly loud. But I definitely can tell it's cranking up in its resources right now. And given it's got 32 gigs of RAM and a 12900H processor, that's a lot of resources to be using. And it's pretty normal to hear any computer start to ramp up during these big Windows updates. It shouldn't do it the whole time, but during certain processes of the installation of those updates, that's a normal thing to hear off any laptop or desktop computer, and no differently on a mini PC. In fact, if I wasn't hearing anything get a little bit louder throughout this process, I would assume something is wrong. Something's not working right. So I feel a sense of comfort when I can hear those fans. What I don't want is for the fans to be something I have to shout over or distracting me from my work. That fan is not that loud, thankfully. David Graham said he's seen deaf people sing really well. I've seen that as well, where people are feeling, they'll put a hand on like a subwoofer and feel the beat. And I don't know how they know if they're in key or not, but clearly they must have some kind of vocal coach that can guide them with hand signals to pitch up or pitch down. But yeah, they'll feel the vibration of the rhythm. And some of them are, you never know they were deaf. They're incredible. I think on America's Got Talent or Britain's Got Talent, they've had one or two. Yeah, never underestimate the willful power of somebody who's really dedicated to do something, regardless of all the reasons why they shouldn't be able to. Bugsy Bogues was about my size in the NBA. This guy's like 5'3", 5'4", playing against players that are 7 feet tall. In the NBA, he was that good. And you see him next to Shaq. They did play together, I believe, on the Chicago Bulls. What a sight. And don't underestimate him. Little squirrely guy gets in and then puts it right in the net. There's a reason he made it to the NBA, and it wasn't because he was tall. He had skills. John Williams said the first concert he went to after moving to Madison, Wisconsin was Genesis and U2 at Cap Randall Stadium, and it was great. Yeah, I imagine it would be. U2 is another one of the oldest touring bands that still around today. I think the Rolling Stones and U2 are very close in how long they've been a band. Now, granted, Rolling Stones were a band about 10 years before U2, but nonetheless, or at least got popular. I had no idea U2 was that big. I'm looking at like a Wikipedia page the other day. Well, it's probably the other month. And I'm like, really? U2? They've been around that long and right in the same class of Rolling Stones? Holy cow. And Genesis, you know, there's another sad story. If you look at the state of Phil Collins today, he can't play drums anymore, but what a cool dude. And never intended to be a singer, just sort of, I'll sing on this track until we find a singer, and hey, you sound pretty good. Let's keep you doing that. Always enjoyable to watch a drummer who can sing and drum at the same time. So watching Phil Collins drum and sing, or Don Henley drum and sing, there's not too many out there that are really popular. What an amazing talent to keep all that coordination in your rhythm and sing at the same time. And I'm sure there's many others I'm not thinking of, but those are the two big ones that come to mind. Ian Gooch joins us from the UK, says hello, Carey, and everyone in the chat from London. Welcome in, Ian. You know, one of my favorite bands I have never ever seen live, which you'd think I'd go see my favorite band live, right? And I'd say outside of the Beatles, the second best band, in my opinion, and remember, I'm an 80s kid, 80s teenager, Duran Duran. And I've never seen them live. And they still tour. I mean, the possibility's still there. They still sound pretty good. And, you know, there must be 15 hits that they sing that I just love. And it's interesting where they have combined, Frankie Goes to Hollywood has a song called Relax. And when Duran Duran in the past had performed their song called Wild Boys, during a bridge in the song, they'll sing Frankie Goes to Hollywood's Relax. It blends right in with the same rhythm and beat. It never occurred to me before that these were identical songs. And Duran Duran, I guess, got permission. And so in the middle of the Wild Boys song, they'll just jump into the song Relax. It's very natural, it just flows. And then they'll get back to Wild Boys, and the rhythm of the music doesn't change. It's the neatest phenomenon. And it's really, really cool to see the band do it. It'd be good to see the other side of it too, to see Frankie Goes to Hollywood do Wild Boys. But regardless of that, I was like, damn, I could have saw that in concert. That would have been amazing. I don't know if they still do it, but you can look for it here on YouTube. It's really, really amazing. They're basically the same song. Kevin says the only concert he went to was Woodstock, and boy, I regret that one. Got drunk, woke up, found myself in a cornfield somewhere he didn't know where he was. That sounds like you had a great time. That sounds exactly like other people's Woodstock experiences. All right, 85%. We're getting there. All right, does anybody have any questions about the Reatan Silver9 that I might know the answer to? Ask away. We have up front just the two USB type A's, so you get one USB type C on the back, regardless if you want to use that for another monitor output. So you can have 3 monitors on at the same time, supporting up to 4K resolution on all 3 at the same time. Or if you want to use that for a faster, like external SSD drive, etc. And then when this is done, we can see about opening this up. All I know about opening this up is these feet just come off. They're not stuck on with any sticky tape. They just got little tabs, and beneath them are the screws. So if you've got to remove rubber feet to get to screws, at least don't glue them down. So I'm glad Reatan did that the right way. Now, I prefer the screws would be just off to the side of where the feet are. But clearly that's why they give us that little baggie in the box of 2 extra feet in case you tear one or break it in removing it. Now, if you do that, and you do it often enough that you've gone through your other 2 feet, don't ask me where you buy any more. And that's the downside, is the longevity of how long is that going to be okay. Now, I think for most people, they're never going to open this up. And if you do open it up, you shouldn't be opening it up 2 or 3 or 4 times. Like, what are you doing? If you do that, you're going to be the person that runs out of rubber feet, and you're going to find out you can't get those, and you'll have to come up with your own solution for that. You can go on Amazon, buy some sticky feet, whatever. But if they never would have covered the screws with the feet to begin with, this would never be an issue, regardless of how frequently or infrequently you open the box. But at least it's a step up from sticky glue. I'll give them that. "31 Dimitar says hello. Welcome in. Welcome in. Jeff H says, what's the price of this unit? So if you look in the video notes below the video, and we've gone through this in the beginning of the video that I think you maybe you're joining us late, you can rewind this video right now where you're watching and see what you've missed in regards to talking about price and availability. Or you can look in the video notes, and we've got links to Amazon and Reatan directly. And there are numerous versions depending on how you equip it. And of course, that affects the price. John Williams says, that's a very nice mini PC. I still love the CyberGeek PC you sent me. It's my daily driver. I love hearing those updates. You know, we didn't get many PCs to review from CyberGeek, 1 or 2. So it's interesting to see how they stand the test of time of real world usage instead of simulated benchmarks. So good news. And most of these PCs, regardless of who makes them, they all generally run with the same reliability. It's pretty rare we hear of one going bad. No rain yet, but the wind is blowing. It's coming. %, almost there. I think it's still downloading some of the other updates automatically in the background to Windows 22 H2, and there's nothing I can do about it. So that's why we're getting the restart now in the corner of the screen. That's for those other updates. So what I'm going to do is just ignore that, let the main 24H2 update complete, and Windows should resolve this priority of updates automatically, I'm assuming. We're going to find out together here in just a minute. But if you do buy these older machines, and by older, they're not that old, but they're old enough that their price has depreciated significantly. So if you want to be first and you want to wait in the line and pay the high price, I'm not telling you not to. But if you want to be next, not first, not last, but next, after a year or so when these products come out, their prices and availability can vary greatly from the day they were introduced. So when the 12900 mini PC first came out, they were easily $800, $900. But today, with a 13900, 14900, and we're just now seeing the 15th gen just trickle out a little bit on mini PCs. We haven't got one yet, and they're very expensive, being it's the latest and greatest. This is where the bargain is to be had. if you're looking for a great value, and it's not everybody clamoring to grab something at the same time, like, oh, AMD announced the 9950X3D for $700, and you can't buy one because they're all sold out. Yeah, you go first. I'll wait till next year, and that 9950X3D will probably be $500 or less. And the difference between, say, the 7850X3D and the 9950X3D, it's like 12% or something ridiculously minor between the two, but a big $400 price difference. $300 price difference for 12 more percent? No, you go ahead. Start without me if I'm not there. And the same is true on the Intel side, by the way. You know, anything that's the latest and greatest is going to draw the highest price. But it's not going to be that much faster than the generation before it, which wasn't that much faster than the generation before it. Now, you go back a number of generations, and before you know it, you're obsolete. But to just get back a couple generations can save you a ton of money and get you so much more value for the dollar, whether it's Intel or AMD. And this is an example of that. But do expect you will have to put a little bit more time in the updates, right? Because it's older. But in exchange, you're getting a really, really good price. Graham Edwards says hello from the UK. Welcome in, Graham. Lana Dro said she saw Johnny Cash in Ventura, California before June Carter and he married. Oh, before he and June Carter got married. Johnny Cash. Yeah. That's a little before my time, I'm afraid. Pretty big in the 60s, as I recall. And I'm born in Detroit, so rock and roll. That was the big thing the radios emphasized in Detroit and all the suburbs, was all about bands like Kiss and bands like Led Zeppelin and Judas Priest and AC/DC and The Who. It's all about the rock. And if it was Detroit rock, oh boy, guys like Bob Seger, so many bands, rock bands, outside of Motown, which of course was also Michigan. That rock and roll Detroit sound was, I didn't have a choice growing up. That's pretty much all the radio stations played. You didn't really hear any country music, and you didn't really hear much in the way of, there were some disco stations, but mostly rock. And disco, the way people talked about it, it's like talking to a professional chef about McDonald's. They had no respect for it. So I got brainwashed in that department, I admit it. All right, we are getting there. Suppose I can just cancel this. Yeah, I'll just hit OK. We definitely need this to complete uninterrupted. And I'm sure that that was with regards to other updates to the 22H2, which, again, I can't stop that from happening. But I don't think it's going to create any installation issues. And if it does, we'll deal with it. Let me get a cold Gatorade. I encourage you, if you have questions for me here, go ahead and put them in the chat room now. There is a delay between when I talk and when you hear me, so I need to leave a little pause to give you guys time to hear the questions and give you time to type your responses. So this is a good excuse for me to walk away and get a cold Gatorade. I have no idea how Mitch is going to fit back here. I'm going to have to move some things around. I've got so many projects. If it was bad before, it's gotten worse. But we'll make it work. We always make it work. Wow, is that wind kicking up out there? Could go fly a kite and end up in Texas. Phil Stodd said he saw U2 open for Jethro Tull in the mid-1970s. Wow, that's very cool. Not too many rock bands have a flute player. I should say not too many popular rock bands. Jethro Tull, they had a unique sound for sure. Medieval rock. No rain. The ground is completely dry, but the trees are going sideways. Okay. Chugging along, almost there. Barry Klein mentions he saw Jethro Tull twice, once with the band Kansas. That seems like a good pairing. I could see that. When I saw Foreigner, they had a no-name person open for Foreigner who I just couldn't wait for him to be done. Because I didn't know any of his music. It doesn't mean he was good or bad. I just never heard any of the songs he played before. And his name was Bryan Adams. Yeah. Get him off the stage and bring on Foreigner already. I don't know who this Bryan Adams guy is. Now I know who he is. But back then, I guess Foreigner saw something in him. But he had no radio play. I never heard of him. I easily forget that he opened because I just wanted him off the stage. Bring on Foreigner. 7:30, the show's supposed to start. Let's go. Who's this guy? Ah. Poor Bryan Adams. Never had a chance with me. These bands, sometimes they have the dumbest lyrics. And it's funny to me, Bryan Adams has cuts like a knife. What else would it cut like? A spoon? Foreigner has a song, Cold as Ice. What would it be cold as? Fire? Like, it's so simple, right? Splinters like wood. What else splinters? So sometimes I hear lyrics in songs where I just go, duh. Hearing the band The Fix acknowledge the silliness of some of their lyrics today when they sing them, song like One Thing Leads to Another, and Cy, the lead singer, he'll right in the middle of the song after he sings One Thing Leads to Another, he goes, well, duh. What was I thinking when I wrote this? That's pretty obvious. David Graham wants to know why Microsoft forces sequenced updates. Sometimes updates update previous updates, and without the previous update, the update to the update can't install because the prerequisite code is not there to be updated. So therefore, the updates have to be sequenced in the right order to establish the latest code going on to the previous code and not the other way around. Now, on the other hand, you could say, well, why doesn't Microsoft just throw 24H2 on there? Well, then the complaint would be, how come I have to have 24H2? Why can't I just get my 22H2 updated? That's what I need. Now, at some point, 22H2 support is either ended or it will end very soon. Might have already ended. And Microsoft says if you want to get any more updates, you got to go to 23H2 or newer. But you can imagine the outcry from the public if Microsoft just forced 24H2 onto everybody, regardless of what you had before. There would be screaming bloody murder out in the streets. So Microsoft is not Apple. This is what Apple will do. And if you're looking for that control of the parent company to control your computer, you are an ideal Apple user. You're somebody who doesn't want to make these decisions. You're typically not very computer technical. You need something much more simpler. You need walls. It's like a bowling alley that puts those little gutter rails for the child to throw the bowling ball so it bounces off of the gutters, so the child doesn't constantly gutter out every throw and then they don't want to play because it's not fun. I think that it's fine. If you don't want to cook food, if you can't be bothered, and you go to the frozen food section of the grocery store and get one of these pre-cooked meals that you just throw in the oven, a lot of people who enjoy cooking will look at you and say, what are you doing? You paid more money for that, for the convenience. It doesn't taste anywhere near as good. The quality's not as good as what you could do yourself. And your attitude may be, well, I'm not interested in cooking and I'm fine with it. That's how it is with PCs versus Apple. The PC world has a lot more options and a lot more control, and it enables people to make bad decisions. Apple doesn't let you make a bad decision. Basically, you do it Apple's way or you don't do it at all, and they charge you more money than any other computer company for personal computers or personal phones than any other company on the planet. They're nearly a $3 trillion company with the extraordinary the profit margins over cost are higher from Apple than I think any electronics company, as far as I know. Certainly PC electronics. Nobody charges more profit. Nobody makes more profit on items than Apple does. And Apple will justify it by saying, we're making decisions for you, so you don't have to. We're keeping you free of viruses and things that affect the Windows world, and you won't have problems Windows PC users will have because we won't allow you to do those things they can do. And when we tell you it's time to update, you will update, or your machine won't work anymore. So too bad if you just paid $3,000 for some machine, because we've just decided it's time for you to buy a new one. And the Apple crowd is good with that. They take my money. I can't do that. It goes against everything I stand for. But I do understand where the appeal is for some people who are not technically minded or who feel it's more of a lifestyle thing to be seen with. Look at my iPhone. I'm somebody. Look at my Mercedes. It's basically a status symbol for some people. And it's a kinder, gentler way to get into using tech without having to become a nerd from their perspective, right? I don't want to have to study math and understand programming and binary because I want to get on the internet. So like from a lot of Apple perspective, Windows users are the nerdy users and Apple users are the everyday folks that are not necessarily computer people. It's not one's better than the other. It's really which one's more appealing to you. Windows doesn't operate like Apple does. And so what you're asking is, why does Microsoft do it this way? I think I've more than answered that. Apple doesn't. Apple's going to give it to you the way they give it to you, and you're going to pay 3 times more for it. It's just the philosophy that comes with the attitude of, I guess, of the corporation's attitude. Apple has a very different attitude, and they're attracting a very different customer than Windows does. It's not better or worse, it's just different. Brian Rhodes said his father took him to see a lot of bands. He saw Peter Gabriel, Joe Walsh, Moody Blues, Pink Floyd, Grateful Dead, and Kiss. Wow, your dad had great taste in music. My dad would wanted me, if my dad would have taken me to a concert, it would have been Elvis, if that were a possible thing, if he hadn't already died. It would have been Bobby Darin. It would have been Bobby D. I thought those were the same guy. Apparently not. It would have been the Silly Song, Love Potion #9, 50s hits. Yeah, I heard so much 1950s music, I just never want to hear it again. I realized Love Potion #9 was probably 60s, but for the most part, Like, it surprises me my dad was never into the Beatles, because he would have been the right age at the right time. But he was a teenager in the 1950s, and I was a teenager in the 1980s. And so I can see the similarity that that music in the 1980s, when I was a teenager, is the music I can never get enough of. And giving my dad that same consideration, the music that was playing in the 1950s when he was a teenager are the soundtrack to his life, and he can't get enough of it. If I never hear another Elvis Presley song for the rest of my life, I'll be fine with that. And I'm sure if I had kids, they would say, if I never heard another Duran Duran song for the rest of my life. So there's a similarity there. I get it. Barry Klein mentions Dr. Demento. Oh, I spent many an evening listening to the radio and Dr. Demento. Jit joins us and says hello. Ian Gooch said he saw the Beatles back in the 1960s and he couldn't hear anything due to the girl fans screaming. Yeah, the sound systems weren't very good back then, you know, especially when you see what they can do today. When there are these giant concerts that take place in, like in England, they'll have these giant events, almost like here in the States, we've got Coachella or Lollapalooza. In England, they've got a couple of very large outdoor events. I can't think of it, something Berry, Glastonbury. And it's just people. It's a sea of people as far as the eye can, all the way to the horizon. And you're like, how can those people hear what's going on at the stage? They certainly can't see the stage from there. The stage has got to be about that big. But what they've got are they've got monitors and speakers set up every couple 100 feet from the stage, going like back a mile, so that by the time the singer is done singing, they're hearing, the singer on stage can hear the end of the song playing a mile away for a few seconds after it's done. There's that much of a delay. And Rod Stewart, I think, did the biggest live outdoor concert in Brazil, which I think is in the Guinness Book of World Records. It was a free concert on the beach that wrapped around, it's like a horseshoe style beach. And I want to say it was 4 million people. And the way everybody could hear, you know, it's pretty technical, where these sound engineers have to set up both screens so people can see the stage and speakers, and loud ones that people could hear over the shouting and the screaming. Now, if the Beatles had that ability, that would have been amazing. But the last concert the Beatles played, the Beatles on stage couldn't even hear their own music. The sound systems have gotten so much better since then. It's a world of difference. You want to talk about how the technology's improved in computers in much the same way in audio processing and amplification. They've come up with some very technical solutions that go into putting on these large-scale concerts where everybody can get great stereoscopic sound no matter where you are in the crowd, because of the positioning and height of the speakers and the angle and the volume and the type of frequency they're putting out. They can assure that if you're over to the left or you're over to the right, you're going to hear a nice blend of the music in stereo for everybody in the crowd. Who even knew that was a thing? And there are sound engineers, and that's what they do. They will set up these large concert events with effectively blueprints that the crew has to go out and set this equipment up and, you know, run through all the testing so that these popular bands like the Rolling Stones and bands that draw big crowds want to be able to hear the music. I had no idea so much went into that. And of course, the Beatles, they just didn't have that technology. So in many cases, when they played live, once they got popular, you couldn't hear a thing. And oftentimes they on stage couldn't hear what they were playing. John Williams mentions Wembley Stadium. Stadiums are a little different, right? So Wembley's a big arena. And we've certainly, here in the States, we're familiar with it because we saw the famous Queen concert at Wembley, but also I think they did Live Aid at Wembley as well back in the mid-'80s. was in two places. I think it was in Philadelphia, and I think it was in Wembley at the same time, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, Wembley's famous, but it doesn't hold a candle in audience size to like Glastonbury. Am I saying it? There's a few outdoor concerts in England where it's just when the camera pans, you just see people as far back as the camera can see. It's crazy. Barry Klein said he went to the Sphere in Vegas. The phased arrays can make it so you're hearing speech in English while the person sitting next to you can hear Spanish. Oh, I heard about that. He said he saw Fish's dome, and Trey talked about it. So personally, I'm not a fan of the band Fish. I'm not real familiar with their music. I think it's very kind of make it up, don't they? Fish, don't they make up their music a bit? It's a bit improvisational. I don't know the band, but I know they have some pretty dedicated fans. Okay, are we done yet? Yes, we've been done for a little bit here, so let's go ahead and restart. Barry says Trey is the lead singer of Fish. And he says he loves the band Fish. Yeah, I've never heard anybody say Fish is just okay. You either get it or you don't get it. And if you get it, you love them. And if you don't get it, it's just whoosh right over the head, you know? Woo, that wind is picking up out there. I still see the sun, though. So usually if the sun is shining, rain is not falling. Boy, oh boy, is it windy. Storms are coming. Update and restart. I do have an edited video of yesterday's review. I trimmed it down to just the guts, which is about a little over 11 minutes of just, here's the unboxing, here's what's in the box, here's how you open it, here's what it looks like on the inside. And I will publish that here on this channel Saturday. So if it looks like a repeat, it's just all of the chit-chatting interaction removed, just right to the product. And I plan to do the same thing with this one. So there are certain viewers who never see my live videos. When they go to the YouTube channel, they just see the uploaded videos. So for those folks, it'll be brand new content for them. And for other people who just want the gist of the unit in a more traditional review or overview, as the case may be, that supplies both sides of the demands from viewers. Different viewers want different things, and we can't please everybody, but something like that, it's pretty easy to edit. And then what I'm going to do is save that editing project, put that on a flash drive, my source file, my edit project, and then I will load up Power Director on the Miniswarm PC, the X1 AI, and render that same product or project out and compare how much time it took. So I'll grab a screenshot of the final results with the same resolution and bitrate and see how it compares to my Galaxy Book 3. And I mean, I don't expect it to be a night and day difference, but I do expect the X1 AI is going to be faster. This is a generation behind my Galaxy Book 3, so I expect this would render the same project out with the same settings, everything's the same, in probably a 10 to 15% longer period of time, given that, like I said, there's not a whole lot of change from the 12900 to the 13900 I have versus the X1 AI, which is AMD's latest and greatest chip. Or that features, that's not the name of the chip, but it features the name of the chip that I can't remember right now. Okay, we'll let this update. John Williams says, thanks for the wonderful live stream. Thanks, Tamara, for all the hard work. Going to dinner. See you tomorrow. Hey, John, enjoy your dinner. Thanks for hanging out with us. And yeah, we'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Mitch will be here. He's got a case and power supply and an NVMe drive that he bought. And we will pair that together with one of our prepped motherboards from the past. Probably something like a 13500, something like that. And given so much of the work has already been done, it should be really easy to just get all the parts installed, cabled up, and send him on his way with a brand new machine. And then we'll follow up with the Windows 10 update issue, figure out what that solution ends up being. So far, none of my other customers have experienced this, but I also haven't checked every customer with Windows 10. I do have remote access to my business clients 24/7, and so if I think about it later, maybe I'll log into a few of those Windows 10 computers and see if there's any errors with the Windows updates, similar to what Mitch demonstrated for me, to determine, you know, is this a common issue or is this a fluke? Way too early to tell right now, but that's one way I can expedite at least an expectation of whether or not this is something people are going to be talking about soon, or I'm unable to reproduce the error except on that one machine. If that's the case, there's something about the machine that needs to be addressed. Sometimes installing Windows on top of itself solves any sort of file corruption issues. I think SFC Scan Now is a waste of time. I can't believe people run that and recommend it. I have never, ever once in my entire career seen that solve a problem. Even running DSIM to re-image or reestablish the quality of the files to verify the quality of the Windows is a complete waste of time. Never in my career has that made a difference. But doing a reinstall of Windows on top of itself, if there's going to be a difference, that's where it's going to find it. But again, that's just my experience. I've been burned so many times believing the nonsense about Scan Now, the SFC Scan Now command. You'd think it works. You'd think at some point it would have worked once. Never, ever. I cannot stress what a waste of time that is. And I don't do that. And to this day, content creators continue to, well, have you tried running SFC? Again, save your time. It's a waste of time. Steve's checking out. All right, Steve, thanks for hanging in there with us. Mark Gaines with a 20-pound super chat. He goes, here's a little something for the channel. I'm still waiting on my cooler to arrive for my new build. Oh, the Trikes cooler? All right, well, appreciate the update. Thank you for the super chat. Did I ever hear back from Andy Kane? I'm still wondering what motherboard was he updating the BIOS to, and what driver was he looking for? It's killing me to only have half the information, and I don't know if he's telling me and I'm not seeing me, or if he's telling me and I'm not seeing his answers, or if he's not provided it. Andy says he's got a Gaming XAX. That's Gigabyte, right? Oh, there it is. Gigabyte B650M. And he said he was installing a new BIOS F33B. I think that's the last I've heard. Ooh, that wind sounds vicious. Hey, Mara, don't go outside. You're going to end up in another neighborhood, and I'm going to have to go looking for you. Or let me tie a rock to your foot.
Hey,
Don't go outside right now.
why?
Because it's too windy and it'll carry you away into another town. Be like Mary Poppins without the umbrella.
I can go put a big jacket on and
Don't.
go fly away.
I will never find you. Bring your phone.
You can put you could tie something around my ankle.
A ball and chain?
Height.
You want the ball and chain off my ankle?
No.
Seriously, don't go out there. Or at least let me put an Apple AirTag on you if you're going outside.
I know.
And that was the last time I saw her. She was taken by the wind.
Well, see, I mean, there's a 100% chance of rain, and all it's doing is fluffing around.
It's fluffing around?
Fluffing around.
You sound disappointed.
I want to see rain.
Oh, I think you're going to see it. They said rain by 4, they said between 2 and 5 o'clock.
I saw alerts that said at 1 o'clock, then at 2 o'clock,
Yeah.
then at 3 o'clock, and now I see a message that says rain expected to stop by 6 o'clock. Like,
Yeah.
It hasn't even started yet.
Right. Well, they said that yesterday, though. But this is usually a precursor to a big rainstorm.
I know.
You don't even like getting wet.
Like the rain.
You like watching the rain while you're
I
dry.
don't like what it does to my hair. There's a lot of hairspray in this hair.
I could shave your head, solve that problem.
You could. That might be fun. Then I'd have a lot of.
Forgot who I was talking to. I forgot who I was. My bad. No, I'm sorry. I didn't think before I spoke. That's on me.
Like switch things up.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, it's seriously windy out there, so.
Okay.
Not
Good
joking.
to know.
Not
I
joking.
can hear it, but I can hear it.
I'm gonna have to like chase after you like a plastic bag. Man, this update's taking a while. Yeah. It is a big update. It does take a while. That's normal. Barry Klein says he doesn't get to see live music as much as he used to, and he misses it. There's something, for me anyway, personally, that when a band gets up and creates music organically, they've got a guitar, they've got drums, especially if they've got wind instruments, bands like Chicago, for example, or, you know, in the 80s, saxophones were used a lot, like Quarterflash and Hall & Oates and Huey Lewis and the News and Foreigner. They had saxophones in the music. You'd have breaks just for the sax. To watch somebody doing that live on stage, you know they're not pushing a button like these DJs, which is fine. It's a skill. I get it. It's its own thing. But sometimes it's good to get back to organic music. Orchestras that don't even need amplifiers. The band is so loud, you know, and they're firing off cannons to the 1812 overture that will deafen you. And it's all made by human hands or lungs. It's incredible. At the same time, even a little bit of digital mixed with the organic, I'm good with that too. Some synthesizers, maybe some recorded loops, but in conjunction with instruments being played by humans, playing chords. Yeah, to watch that live, that is, I don't know, there's just a talent there that anybody can push buttons on a keyboard. I mean, I could be maybe disrespectful. Maybe there's more to it than it appears, but I think I could be Deadmau5 or Skrillex. I think I could easily do that job. I haven't tried it, but it's pretty easy. But on stage with an instrument, whether it's a piano, a guitar, bass guitar, a wind instrument, watching rock bands break stereotypes where Queen would do opera rock. Electric Light Orchestra would put violins, electric violins into rock music. That was all new to us. Like, that was so amazing. Jethro Tull doing this very unique, almost medieval sounding rock and roll. A weird combination. Today, I don't know, people push buttons, they can make whatever sounds they want. But one of the fun things in the 1980s for me was hearing sounds I'd never, ever heard before. The guitar breaks in Another One Bites the Dust by Queen. I couldn't figure out how they made those sounds. What were those sounds in the middle of the song? Bands like the Cars that, you know, had that digital sound was like nothing we'd ever heard before. Sunglasses at Night and Sweet Dreams Are Made of This. The music moved back and forth across the headphones, or moving in stereo by the Cars, where it shifted from one ear to the other. We had never heard anything like that. And for a while, the Beatles were experimenting with stereo, where they play the music in one ear and the vocals in the other, and I can't stand that. But to have that depth and to have these new sounds, we'd never heard these sounds before. The Jukebox Hero has a sound to it. Can't even describe it. It's very unique. And when you listen to it on a good set of headphones, and even in the 80s, it was a sound unlike any other sound we'd ever heard. So I kind of feel bad when these kids grow up today and they just kind of take all that for granted because it's already there. When for us, it was a new discovery and it was unlike anything, and it was pretty exciting. And it's easy to forget that's what drew us to the music, because after a while, you just become numb to it, right? And you're just like, yeah, that's the song. Oh, wait, I forgot what made the song so special. How the hell did they make that sound? It was, what other song in that era or before that era comes even close to that? I can't think of one. And I don't think the people growing up today listening to music really think about that anymore. It's just there. It is what it is, without a lot of thought to how it's made, because you could basically make whatever your imagination can conjure up on your computer. And they're not wrong. But I do miss that dynamic novelty and creative imagination of the musician to come up with sounds we'd never heard before and use them in a way that you wondered, where has this been all my life? Dennis Hill mentions Billy Thorpe's Children of the Sun. Great song. Great song. Yeah. And another one great to listen to with headphones on. Very dynamic. Some really cool effects in it. Yeah. That song didn't get as popular as it should have, in my opinion. But you give a guy a guitar, right? You can give a guy a guitar and he can entertain you, or she can entertain you with that guitar without needing anybody else in the room. And I'm talking about somebody like Billy Squier, who can just go in concert by himself, just him and his guitar, and you will be jamming along and you won't miss the drums or the bass. He doesn't need it. He is a one-man band. Now granted, it does sound, there's more dynamic to the studio versions of the songs with the studio musicians playing on the tracks, but man, that guy's got a voice and he can play. And he'll often just go on stage by himself. And you're like, well, where's the rest of the band? And you start listening and you realize he doesn't really need it. Not too many musicians in my world are that good. Okay, the fan is awfully quiet. Has it finished? Nope, still working on updates. Well, we're going to get through this one way, one way or another. This does have serviceable, upgradable RAM and storage in it, and it is relatively easy to get to. Underneath the rubber feet, which just pull off, there's some recessed Phillips head screws. You remove the 4 screws. There is the Wi-Fi antenna glued onto the bottom of this. So when you remove this, don't remove it with a lot of force, or you'll rip those Wi-Fi antennas right off of there. So be very gentle when you take the back off of it. It's going to stay attached to those Wi-Fi antennas. Just bear that in mind if you're going to buy one and you're going to open it up. If we have time to get to it today, we will. It's really nothing we haven't seen many times before from other mini PCs. It's really not much in the way of uniqueness underneath that cover. It's pretty standard in what you would expect. But I still advise, if you're going to buy any kind of a computer, unless you're building it yourself, I strongly advise you to buy it equipped the way you want it. Don't buy it with less RAM or storage thinking I'll upgrade that myself, because you might be voiding your warranty, and I can almost guarantee you're paying more for it than if you would just buy it from the factory with the RAM and storage you want. That will cost you less, it'll keep you under warranty, and you'll be less likely to have problems. We deal with a lot of problems in my industry that are user created because they couldn't leave it alone. Now, that's not to discourage learning or education, but if you're going to go down that route, you have to understand you're taking a risk. And a lot of people don't realize, they just, oh, I'm just going to upgrade the RAM, and then the machine won't turn on anymore. Now they need a repair. And prior to that, they had no complaints with the machine. We also deal with a lot of people who still think that the technology and the philosophy of technology that existed 10, 20, 30 years ago still applies today. I want more RAM, more storage. That doesn't make any sense today. Windows 11 is so efficient that even with 8 gigs of RAM, the system is very adequate. This system with 32 gigs of RAM, you will likely never use 32 gigs of RAM, at least not in the next couple of years, and probably not even then. Most end users who consider themselves power users think they're using more than they're really using. I don't know if that makes them feel better about themselves, but I don't consider that an admirable human quality that I need more RAM. You probably don't. You've just convinced yourself of it, or you used to back when Windows was not efficient as it is today. For anybody to exceed an actual use case scenario where they are utilizing more than 32 gigs of RAM is possible, but you represent a very, very teeny tiny portion of computer users. And for you, you shouldn't be looking at cheap, inexpensive, value-oriented equipment. If you're that kind of user, you should be buying the high-end expensive stuff, because that's the kind of need you have. But for the rest of us, the vast majority of computer owners, you'll barely use 16 gigs. And you might hit into the 20s, but you're never going to hit into 32 gigs of used RAM. Not average users, they're never going to do it. So for people to add 64 or 128 gig, that is so extreme and extraordinary that it might be entertaining to watch these people spend their money needlessly on unnecessary upgrades that make them feel better about themselves. Please don't fall into the trap. In many cases, adding more RAM can slow you down, and people don't get that. We reach a point of diminishing returns in processing power, in RAM and in storage, where at some point you're spending more and more and more to just get less and less and less. Or you're getting increments that are decreasing. So the benefits start to vanish, they diminish. Once you hit that middle point, anything above that has very teeny tiny benefits at very, very high prices. And I'm not telling you not to. If you want to throw your money down the toilet to buy unnecessary hardware because you think you need it, don't let me stop you. But also, don't be influenced by extremists on YouTube that demonstrate preposterous and unrealistic and impractical hardware upgrades with bottomless budgets, who may have gotten the hardware for free or are paid by sponsors. This is a very impractical thing that most end users will never ever do. Most people who buy a mini PC, this will be shocking for some of you, will never open this PC in the entire time they own it. And you want to know something? Those are the people who will call with problems the least. It's the tinkerers and the people who want to play and get their hands in. These are the ones who need help most often. They get into something they thought was going to be simple. Either they made a mistake or they got in a little over their head, and now they got some second thoughts and they might have damaged a machine for no good reason. What was wrong with it? Nothing. I wanted to make it faster. So it was slow? Well, I'll just add more RAM. But why? Because I could. I had it laying around. Okay, and now you're having a problem? Yeah, the machine won't turn on anymore. So the people who leave it alone are the ones who have the most reliable computers, period. If you don't care if your computer's reliable, if you don't mind when your computer goes down, have at it. But usually, when people call me and ask for help, they sound desperate. Oh my gosh, my whole world is come to a complete stop because my computer isn't working. Why isn't your computer working? And the long story short is they did work to it when it didn't need any work done that they thought would be really easy, spent money they didn't need to spend because they just thought it'd be a good idea, probably inspired from some YouTube video. And now this perfectly good working machine won't work anymore. And what can you do to help me? Well, is that a computer problem or is that a computer user problem? Which one do I fix? Which one can I fix? Typically in the computer repair business, you're not often solving problems people create for themselves because they usually don't have the money to pay for service or they have too much pride. What we do in the computer repair business professionally is we deal with actual problems that occur in business, which could be from software updates, failed hardware, power outages, viruses, some user clicked on the wrong thing. We don't usually see much in corporate repair with regards to neglect or maintenance because that's all part of the IT department's job. So those problems typically don't occur. We switch out hardware. We don't own it too long. We don't have typically 10-year-old computers in a corporate environment where the employees need to work to help the customers. That would cost the company too much in lost productivity than to replace the computers every few years. And what you'll see a lot of people asking for help with online are people trying to stubbornly hold on to old, obsolete hardware that they can't get to work, and they foolishly, in my opinion, think that once I can get this fixed, it'll be fine. Well, it'll be fine for a little while, but the older it gets, it's just going to fail again and again, and the frequency between failures is going to become much more frequent. Its failure rate jumps excessively over 10 years old. Like if it was this reliable before, after 10, suddenly now the failure rate jumps multiple times. It's more likely and more frequently going to fail in different ways. And then you're going to get software and hardware that won't install on it because it can't keep up, which creates more support calls and more problems they need help with when it's time to just buy a new machine, get a brand new under warranty computer, order it the way you want it, put whatever software you want on it, and then use the darn thing, right? If what you want to do is upgrade RAM and upgrade storage because you think it's fun, become a tech and let other people spend the money on that stuff, and you can enjoy putting it in for them, and you'll get paid to do it versus you paying money to potentially break this machine that makes you potentially very distraught that it's no longer working when it was working fine before you did unnecessary work to it. So you can make money if that's the kind of thing you enjoy doing. On the other hand, if you understand what your consequences are potentially going to be if you decide to do that, just know that was part of the package. Don't automatically assume everything's going to be fine. That's your goal. You want everything to be fine. But the minute you open it and start making changes, anything goes. And you might learn some valuable lessons from it. You might be successful first go out. You might have a problem you've never had before that doesn't make any sense to you. And in either case, whatever those results are a direct consequence, an reaction to your action. So if you're not prepared for that, don't go down that path. If you are prepared for that, have at it, okay? And of course, we're always happy to help in any way we can. For whatever reason, you are having an obstacle getting to whatever your goal is, the best advice, if it's really important to you to have a good, solid operating computer, don't do unnecessary work inside of it, on it. Don't start experimenting with software every download that you see. There's a lot of content creators that make system utilities. Let's take that for example. And they're great system utilities, but the problem is they need constant updating. And in my 34 years in this industry, I keep seeing the same patterns over and over and over again. Somebody very enthusiastically comes out with some system utility that solves some annoyance in Windows. And it needs updating because Microsoft is always updating Windows. But the people working on Windows at Microsoft are constantly being hired and fired. It's not the same people, but the person writing the utility is the same guy, right? It's the same one person. And eventually they just get worn out. They just can't keep up with the corporation and all the changes, and they abandon the utility. So in that window of time that this person creates this utility, it's great and it's useful. But after a few Windows updates, the utility needs to be updated, or it'll start potentially breaking or not functioning fully in your Windows operating system any longer. So take a Windows debloating tool. Some people will say, you know, you can use this utility and take all the bloat out of Windows, but every time Windows updates, potentially it changes what the bloat is. So that means the bloat software has to accommodate for those changes. And then in the next month, there's more changes. And the next month, there's more changes. And eventually, this fun project is now a burden. It's not fun anymore. And they're the only one who does it. There's nobody to pass it on to. And it either goes stale and it's no longer useful, or, and you got to love this, the utility is so big and bloated, the debloating tool needs a debloating tool. It's inevitable. That's how it works. So my rule of thumb is stay away from these utilities because they're temporary. Unless it's a corporation that has hiring and firing of employees that regularly and routinely together as a team work on a project, one individual working on a project, that project has a limited life. I guarantee it. Whether it's because the person's burned out, they don't have time, there's not enough money in it, they've lost their enthusiasm, or they're sick and tired. They're just too old to do it. It will eventually be abandoned. So if you never get hooked onto those products to begin with, you don't need them. You can just go to the app section of your control panel and just remove the programs you don't want. It's not a big deal. It takes seconds. For the amount of time it takes to write and test a piece of debloating software and the amount of effort it takes to constantly update it every time Microsoft makes changes, you are in a circle that you can't get out of. And eventually, your energy level and your enthusiasm, if you're a human being, they're going to wane. And it's just not worth it anymore. Whatever satisfaction you used to get from it, it goes. And it's always the same. And it's not saying anything bad about the people coming out with these things. I've just seen us all before. And why even bother? Like if I'm an end user and somebody says, hey, this person's got a great utility, it may be great today. And maybe they'll keep it updated for a while, but I guarantee you they will abandon it. Just give it time. It just gets too much. Trying to keep up with a major corporation with one individual, you can keep up for a little while, but you're going to get exhausted. And you will eventually say, that's enough of that. Looks like our update did finally finish here. So let me go back and let's take a look at our system properties. Right-click System, and hopefully we have Windows 11 24H2. Now it does take a while to put this in, and that's normal, but once you do it once, you're good to go. And then make that system image, you'll never have to do it again. So see these things that Windows installs by default? Just right-click on it, install. These are just shortcuts. As soon as I let go of the mouse button, they're already uninstalled. Once I hit that button, boom, it's already gone. So you don't need a tool, because in my opinion, this is not bloat. This is like, I don't know, trimming the fat? I wouldn't even call it that. They're crumbs. They're so little and they don't take up any resources. There's nothing bloating the system. You just maybe don't like looking at those. It bothers you to see them. Again, this is a human being problem, not a computer problem. But nonetheless, I don't need to spend time developing a tool for what takes seconds to go in here and remove things that I don't want to look at. Because they're not causing any harm to be there. Let's be clear. They're not using any resources. You just don't want to look at them. So I don't know how to fix this with the person, but it's also not, it's easier to just accommodate this bizarre desire of some end users who feel offended by looking at things to just one by one uninstall. And it's less than a minute to go through each item because they're not full applications. Now, Microsoft OneDrive is an application, as is Teams, but most of these are just shortcuts, and they just come out in seconds. So I think people are making a pretty big deal based on some PTSD of bloatware from systems past. They just don't do that anymore. This is 8K. It's nothing. Now, if you're building 10 systems a day and you don't want to go through this on all 10 systems, you'd probably be using system imaging tools, right? So even then you wouldn't use a deep loader even in that scenario. See that Windows 11 installation assistant? We don't need that anymore. That PC health check, we don't need that anymore either. So we can take those out, but we added that bloat. We did that. But it wasn't bloat when we added it. But now that we're done with it, by the definition of the average user out there, based on the language I'm seeing, this would be defined as bloat, which is very different from what we call bloat in the industry. But be that as it may, this remote desktop connection, I think that's a security risk to have that installed, so I take it out. And that's just something that comes with the Pro version of Windows. That, again, most home users, unless you're servicing customers, you don't need to have the Pro version of Windows. You might want it, but it'd be like having a cash register at your house. Why would you want a cash register in your house? I'm sure some of you have one. Wouldn't be surprised. But that's for doing business with customers. If you're not doing business with customers, you don't need a cash register in your house. That doesn't mean you can't have one. It's a very impractical thing to buy. But if you're a business, it's a requirement. So think of Windows Pro version as a cash register. And if you have need for a cash register, then buy one. But most of us don't have that need unless we're running a business. So if you're running a business, you want that Pro version. If you're not running a business, it's more than likely you absolutely will see no benefit from the Pro version of Windows. It doesn't do anything for you that the home version doesn't already do in everyday use case scenarios. But some people just want to see that word Pro. It makes them feel better. Spend money and they go through these headaches that are completely avoidable and unnecessary for a psychological concern, which sometimes it's better and easier to just go with it, you know, than it is to try and convince somebody otherwise. They've got their mind made up. But again, people don't normally hire me to do that kind of work. Normally there's actual problems I'm hired to fix, not imaginary ones they dream up. So my perspective when I come out onto my YouTube channel is going to be very different because of that. What you see from other YouTube content creators are mostly just enthusiasts, hobbyists, home lab users that like to tinker. And that's great. I'm not opposed to it. But it's not an example of practical real world industry work, which is what keeps us employed, which keeps an income coming in so I can pay my bills and keep the world economy moving. I'm an important part of that. I like to think I am. So these companies can continue to help the customers can continue to get the services they need. And then those customers, they go to work to earn their living. That earns them money so they can pay for the services they need from the companies that provide them everything from their electricity, water, internet, cell phones, grocery stores. All of this has to work for society to work. So somebody who has a home lab and a hobby of playing with computers has no impact on society around them. That's just a very private interest. And again, nothing wrong with that. It's just, that's not, if you want to get into this to earn money and have a living, that's not what you'll be doing. You'll be doing what I'm describing. There's no RGB in corporate America. There's no liquid coolers, with some exception, in corporate America. There's no overclocking. There's no thermal paste replacements. That just isn't done. And we also don't generally service computers that are more than 6 years old. Corporate entity is in their best interest to make sure they're running the latest secure hardware to ensure the best productivity so they don't have to hire more people that cost more money and have customers waiting longer to be helped. So those customers might go somewhere else for business. So there's a lot riding on the kind of work and the perspective of the kind of work that I do, that I want to make sure my viewers understand. You don't have to like it, but there is a big difference between the majority of technical content on YouTube, which is hobbyist fun, and a lot is riding on this. Somebody might like, they might have a hobby with playing with fire extinguisher systems, and they think that's fun. Okay, nothing wrong with it. But if you're a fireman and your job is you get called and buildings are burning and people are in dire straits, you need to get there. They're counting on you. There's a lot riding on you. It's a lot of pressure. You got to have the right tools, know how to use them, and work as efficiently and as effectively as you can. And while it's not that drastic, it can feel that way when you're in the middle of it, when the customers are angry and the company is angry and everybody's looking at you to get them back up and running so they can get back to business. That's why the job pays, right? Nobody's going to go through that kind of pressure for free. And at the same time, if you're just spending money to buy things to tinker with in the basement, have at it. They're two very different worlds. So I'm here to present to you that side that doesn't get presented much here on YouTube, which is the real world work, in the hopes that if you're considering this as a career, that you have proper expectations on what the work is. Because the work is different than the hobby. At least in my experience. Let me jump back over to Windows Update right quick, because we are going to have some updates to our updates. So these will be the updates to 24H2. Since 24H2 came out in the fall, there's been updates since then, every month. And the longer we get past this release date of 24H2, the more updates there are, until 25H2 comes out. And then that'll get us current with all the updates at that point. So in the meantime, we have 12 months worth of updates before the next large major version update. And the longer you go between them, the longer this takes. I mean, that should be common sense, right? The important thing is that you're running a computer that is capable without circumventing any of the requirements of Windows 11, because that will come back to bite you. All you're doing is procrastinating the inevitable. There's no way around it. You're buying some time, but one way or another, you're going to deal with this. And you can deal with it when you choose to, when it's convenient and when you're ready, or you can wait until it stops working without warning and be forced to deal with it. And it's likely going to be a very bad time for you. It's probably not going to be a convenient thing. So you're much better being proactive, making sure that you're prepared and ready, instead of being reactive when it affects you and forces you to deal with it when you weren't ready for that at all. But again, that's just my perspective. I don't like unnecessary and avoidable stresses. If you got to do it anyway, why not start putting the plan in now and do it when it's convenient for you and you can shop around and find a good price and get that machine replaced, so you don't have to do all these kludges and things that will eventually stop working without warning. They'll just stop working and nobody will be able to help you. That is coming. If you insist on using Windows 10, you are just waiting for the inevitable. You cannot stop it. So if you're one of those people that likes to wait till the last minute, you still have time. Still no rain. Forbidden Colossus wants to know if Windows has an add remove log for the changes when you're uninstalling software to see everything it took out. Yeah, but what would you compare it to? In other words, if you don't have an installation log to see every change that was made in every file that was copied, just looking at an uninstallation log would mean nothing, because you'd have to compare it to something. So while I encourage your questions, I identify and I want to make people aware that there are certain questions that exist solely in the imagination and anxiety of the user that don't manifest into actual problems. They're just making up problems in their mind. When and if you have a problem with an uninstall, we're here to help you. But if all you do is conjure up an imagination of system instability or system performance reduction due to uninstalls leaving things behind, that doesn't exist outside of your mind. Unless you can prove otherwise, there's no information I can provide you to help solve that problem, because that problem exists between the ears. It doesn't exist at the keyboard. Until it can be proven otherwise, at that scenario, when that's presented and we can identify a symptom, then we can address that symptom with a solution, or at least attempt to. But if your symptom is purely imaginary, there's no fix for that. I don't know what to, I don't know how to answer. I can't answer anxiety questions. And well, again, I do encourage questions. I also encourage self-awareness. So if you don't have a problem with your PC, what are you worried about? There's no problem with a PC I've never been able to resolve. I've always resolved every problem. But imaginary problems that people make up in their head, I've never been able to resolve those. Never, not once. So do know that if you have an actual issue with your computer, we are here to help you. Regardless if that was self-inflicted, or you know, just the luck of the draw. It does happen. Regardless, we're here to help. But we cannot help imaginations. There's no answer for you there. And how are we doing over here? Almost done. I'm hoping that, you know, I hate for these shows to go on 3 hours, but if I did this off camera last night, you wouldn't have gotten the real unboxing experience. And I feel like a lot of channels fall short in what I want to see, which is, how is it packaged? How do I know if what I ordered has been opened and used before? So I want to see how it's packaged and how it comes out of the box. I don't want to just see what's outside of the box. Sometimes there's a trick to opening the box. They don't tell you that. Oh, there's more stuff under this panel. I didn't even realize that panel came out. So for me personally, that's what I want to see, and that's why I left the shrink wrap on this. The downside is it means we have to sit through a lot of updates where we're not really doing much. But this also prepares you, if you buy one, you're going to have to do this too. And if I just skip through all that in editing, it'll make it look like nothing. So I don't want you to be surprised or to have a different experience than what you've seen. I want to keep this genuine and transparent, so that if you go down this path, if you buy this unit, you should be going through the same unboxing, everything packed the same way, and expect to do the same updates. And no different than, you know, if I ran a Cinebench on it or something, you should get the same Cinebench scores. Same thing, just everybody does the Cinebench thing, right? Who's doing this kind of work? Who's even emphasizing how important this is? Cinebench isn't important. This is critically important, these updates. Why aren't they talking about them? I don't know, but that's why I am. I want to provide you the information that is being omitted from the majority of YouTube tech channels, whether on purpose or unintentional, I can't say, but it's critical information, and somebody needs to make the viewers aware. There's more to it than this oversimplification of quick reviews that end up just being commercials for a product. And for all you know, they got paid. And a paid review is not a review. A paid review is a commercial. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There's no way you can get paid and say that you can be an unbiased reviewer. No way. I'm not buying that. Not buying it. So So close to being done. Oops, did that just say it was finished? No. Wow, it's getting dark out there, and the ground is wet. It's starting to rain. There it is. I guess that 100% chance forecast was correct. You just don't hear that very often. 100% chance. That doesn't sound like a chance. That's not my definition of the word chance. Peter BZ with a €1 super chat. Thank you, Peter. As always, we appreciate you. Did I miss any others? Let me look at my history here. We got our super chat from Peter, Mark Gaines, and Planet Cryos. And again, one from Planet Cryos and our friend Buster. And a membership renewal from Davis Parsons. Right on. Thank you, guys. So close. Andy Kane said he blew the rain over here from Ireland. We're good with that. Do that more often. We can use it over here. It's pretty dry. Barry Klein with a $2 super chat says it's an enjoyable stream today. Thank you. Well, thanks for hanging out, Barry. We appreciate our audience members who understand what we're doing here and why. Sometimes the audience, some members of the audience don't understand this. And for some reason they keep watching and complaining, but we don't see that very often these days. And it's great that we have such a like-minded audience here that can appreciate the reasoning behind the content and why it's different from others. Because honestly, if I was making the same content as everybody else, I wouldn't feel any need to do it. But at the same time, a lot of people don't understand it or they don't care enough. Sometimes those people who don't understand it the most are the ones who complain about it. I don't like this free thing, but I'm gonna keep consuming it. But I want you to know I don't like it. Okay. Well, you enjoy that. Might have to deal with someone staying up past their bedtime. I don't know, they get a little grumpy. Let's take a look here at our status. Are we ready yet? Anytime you see a cumulative update, that's going to be a pretty big update. It's going to take a little bit to install. I don't care how fast your machine is. You could have the latest and greatest Threadripper with all the RAM in the world, and you're still going to be sitting here waiting on some of these updates. And there's nothing you can do about it. When Microsoft writes these updates, they are not writing them to install quickly. That's not even on the map for the developers. It's just release the update, get it installed. It doesn't matter if it happens quickly or efficiently, so long as it's successful. That's the main thing. So the good news is you can set, once you've got everything current, you can set everything to automatic and get all your future updates happening automatically in the background. And it can happen while you're working, you don't even realize it. But when we open a brand new computer, take it out of the box, and set it up, you should always, laptop, desktop, mini PC, always be hitting Windows Update. Very first thing you need to do. It's also a very good burn-in test to make sure that everything's working correctly. Because if you've got bad RAM or corrupted storage, all of that will start to appear if it's happening through the installation process, especially on the big updates. They won't succeed. You'll get blue screens of death or failures. And you better find that out before you get everything all customized the way you like it, only to have to turn around and send it back and start all over again with another unit. And it's just a great way to test drive and sort of break it in before you start settling in on it. And this is true even on a machine you build yourself. Don't just dive in and start assuming everything's good. Test it out. Make sure the ice isn't too thin before you step on it and put your full weight on it. And then once you've established everything's strong and sturdy, then and only then can you start trusting your full weight on it without worrying about falling through the ice. And when you're dealing with a new computer, you don't know how it was handled in shipping. It's not necessarily any blame of the manufacturer. For all you know, someone at the warehouse drop kicked it to the other side of the warehouse. Touchdown! And it eventually made its way to your front door. And you think, oh, this thing's a piece of junk, it doesn't work. The manufacturer's like, what are you talking about? It worked fine before we sent it out. So where's the problem? Between you and the manufacturer. So always make sure that the machine runs before you go dedicating a lot of time and effort into customizing it the way you like it. And then once you have dedicated that time and effort, make a system image backup of it so you never have to do that again for that machine. And you're good to go. You just put that effort in the front, and then you can proceed forward and never have to put that kind of effort into it ever again until it's time to replace it. Dustin Fuller says, great stream as always, Carey and Mara. Thank you, Dustin. Let me take another look here at camera 2. Still going. We're only at 60%, huh? Okay. So if there's a downside to buying an older machine, we know what the upside is. Cheaper price. You're not scrambling and fighting people to get one before they sell out like some brand new just released product at the highest price it'll ever sell for and the lowest inventories they ever had. You wait a while, in this case about 2 years, and the machine sells for half of what it used to sell for. There's plenty available. That's all the upside. The downside is it may be needing a little bit of what's the word I want? Needs to be reinvigorated. It needs to be I can't think of the word. I want the words right there on the top of my tongue there. It has to be brought up to date, right? You're just not going to get in and turn the keys and go. You need to warm it up a little bit. It's been sitting for a while and it's out of date. You need to get it current, get it back up to speed. Once you've done that, then you're free to go, right? Then just whatever you want to do. And the cost for your time, your reimbursement for your time to get that up to speed, results in that huge discount that you're getting from when it was sold brand new, when you wouldn't have had to do this, because back then that's the Windows that was, right? It was already up to date back then when it was initially installed and created. So it's a little bit of a trade-off, but I think for most people that price difference is so significant that it's an easy answer, like, oh, I think that's totally worth it. Yeah, I didn't want to say refurbish it. It's not refurbishing it. You're just sort of, yeah, what's that word? It's going to bug me now. If you had surgery on your knee, you'd be going to physical therapy to work that knee back in. You wouldn't just start using that knee like you used to. You have to recalibrate it. You have to build it back up. And when you put that effort in, and physical therapy is hard, but the reason is the payoff is fantastic, right? When you're able to walk without needing a cane anymore or needing assistance, and you get your freedom back. And hopefully be able to jog and run too, but that's not going to happen overnight. Well, in much the same way, that sort of recuperation, I think that's the word I was looking for, recuperation. That's what these need. They need a little recuperation, which is to get them all updated. And it's going to take a little while. But at the end of the day, if we spent an hour or 90 minutes updating this because it sat on a shelf for 2 years, that's a pretty big difference. 2 years versus an hour and a half. That's a pretty good trade-off, I think, especially when you consider the discount in the price. There are budget machines that are less well equipped that are cheaper. There are higher end machines, far better equipped, that are more expensive. But is there another machine that's equipped with 32 gigs of RAM, a terabyte of storage, and a 12900H processor that you could buy for less than this one? Brand new, under warranty? If you're aware of one, please let me know. That's all I can say. Frank Jimmy uses the word rehabilitate. An even better word, Frank, thank you. We're rehabilitating it. It's been neglected. So it needs to be rehabilitated, brought back up to speed. Once it's back up to speed, you're good to go from that point forward. So we're just gonna, gently bring it up to speed, make sure everything's updated and secured, the foundation's solid and stable, that we can rely on it. And then once you do those checks, no looking back. And that's how we do it in the business world. We don't simply deploy something out across the company. We will deploy something out in a little piece, test it first, right? Take our time. And if everything checks out, then we'll deploy it out a bit more, especially if it's a major deployment. It's something that's a big update. We generally don't have the resources to do the entire corporation at the same time, even if we wanted to. And we don't want to deal with a flooded phone system and email system from all the employees contacting the support desk because something stopped working. It overwhelms the IT department. It pisses off the employees, and the customers aren't getting helped. And then the management of the company is pissed off. So we have to take it in bites for all of these reasons. And the bites get bigger every time. And eventually, once we're satisfied, we can wipe out the rest of everybody else in one big fall swoop. That's just the remnants of the smaller bites we've taken to get us there, with each bite typically being bigger than the one before it, until the entire company's updated. We don't just go in one day and just throw a big update onto everybody's computer and hope for the best thing tomorrow morning. Unless you want a very stressful tomorrow morning, because it's all going to fall on you and your department in IT to straighten that out. And then you'll have to touch every single desktop to fix it. No pressure. On top of the regular problems, the day-to-day problems that your full-time job brings you, you will be voluntarily adding that mess, which isn't going to look kindly on your review. So I apply that same philosophy to every computer I sell. We put the time and the investment into it in the beginning, and we make sure that everything's solid and stable and address the issues, if there are any, now while it's just one affected machine, before it's 10 infected machine or affected machines all on the same time. Then it's overwhelming and stressful. And that's it. It's really very, very simple. And I think we're ready to restart. So the rain out there is not too bad. It's raining, but the wind stopped. So yeah, it's not the big storm they said it was going to be. But maybe, because we're in Arizona, a little bit of rain is a big storm to us. I don't know. Corey Man had some suggestions there. Yeah, well, you got the gist of it. You got the gist of what I'm saying, right? And if you can't be bothered with that, then don't buy an older machine. Set your expectations accordingly, along with your budget, right? And I think for me, and that I want to get the most for my money, there is nothing slow about a 12900. There's nothing obsolete about it. And yeah, it's missing updates. The updates are free. And you wouldn't be doing a live video waiting for it. You could set these updates to install and go watch TV, go have dinner, come back. It'll wait for you indefinitely. It'll wait till next week. Just let it sit there. And then you can restart it and just go in whenever it's convenient for you. You don't have to accommodate the machine. The machine is there patiently waiting for you on your schedule. So we get back to that whole issue of impatience and how impatience creates a lot of problems and can cost a lot more money. So you can be as impatient as you want to be if you can afford it. But for somebody like myself, I want my money to go as far as possible. I don't want to waste money. I don't want to spend money I don't have to spend for problems I didn't have to have. If all I have to do is be more patient, and that's in turn going to save me a lot of money with all the benefits that follow afterwards, I will take that deal every day. William Denton says, check the radar. The radar for what? The weather? I wouldn't know what I'm looking at. Now with a machine like this, you could do some gaming on it. I mean, Intel's built-in graphics aren't exactly known for their gaming prowess, but older games, certainly League of Legends or, gosh, I don't know, retro 90s games like GameCubes, you know, stuff like that. You could do retro emulation on this easily. Seems like it could be cheaper to just buy a GameCube. But hey, look, you know, people want what they want. Let me turn this off. Search permissions. Scroll down here, and we're going to turn that setting off right there. And once again, if we look in the device manager, we want to make sure that we don't have any problem hardware with regards to drivers, that everything looks good. Our storage is going to be Gen 4 storage. As I mentioned, we're probably going to get somewhere in the upper 4,000s, low 5,000s in storage speeds. The difference between Gen 3 and Gen 4 is twice the speed, but ultimately ends up in milliseconds in performance differences that most human beings wouldn't notice anyway. So I'm not too concerned about benchmarking the drives other than just out of curiosity. But overall, this will be much, much faster than any mechanical drive or solid-state SATA-based drive you've ever had in your life. And I mean multiples faster. And so yes, they do make faster NVMe drives. They also have bigger heat sinks and better cooling to get and achieve those speeds. So if you want that kind of performance, again, it's available if your wallet can afford it. When you're the manufacturer and you're the one designing these machines, you've got to pick a configuration or multiple configurations that meet a certain audience type, right? And at some point, you realize the vast majority of people don't care about stuff like NVMe speeds. They care more about how much space they've got. And most end users, as I mentioned, in my experience, they don't use more than 100 gigs of space ever in the entire ownership of the computer. And if you do, you should be saving that to an external drive. In my opinion, external SSDs are cheap, or even a network attached storage in such a case. To stick with internal storage is just, to me, an outmoded way of doing things. You know, unless you have a certain specific need, I think it's just essentially you learned something a long time ago and you're still holding on to that when it's not a practical answer today. There's always exceptions, and you need to decide what's right for yourself. But the more you can get the data away from the machine, the more independence you have from that machine. So your world's not completely devastated if something happens to the machine, so long as you've got other data on another drive that you could plug into another computer and get back up and running again. It's so much more stress-free, and it really doesn't cost any different. It's about creating different habits. Let me shut this down. And let's just open it up real quick, and we'll wrap it up for today. I apologize, these shows are running long because of the Windows updates. But if I don't show this and I don't show realistically how long it takes, then I feel I'm doing the viewer a disservice by just blowing over it like it's nothing in an edit. Now, likely I will have an edited version that does blow over it, just to get the time down. But at least if somebody says, hey, you know, that took way longer than I thought, say, yeah, that's why you should have watched the other video. If you wanted that kind of information, I provide it. Now I'm going to just take these cables and set them over here momentarily. And I have my screwdriver set from the other day. Let's take this out. Take out my dongle here. We're going to take off these feet. Let me go to the closer camera so you guys can see. Take these feet off of here. You see how easily these come off? Oh, the screws are just right there. They're not even that deep. So a regular screwdriver, like a Phillips #1 or a JIS #1, is, we don't necessarily need the precision toolkit. I will need my glasses so I can see.
Now we're talking.
Are you lost, little girl?
Outside.
I don't know. It's getting dark out there. There's a big yellow sticker that says, "Attention! Disconnect internal cables first when lifting the lid." Well, how can you disconnect the cables under the lid without lifting the lid? Now, the machines we looked at before, some of them have a like a pull tab. This one does not. So I'm not quite sure how we separate, because they want a nice clean seam all the way around. So how do we get that lid off of there? There's like nothing to grab onto. There are little square holes that the rubber feet have, little nubs that hold the feet in. Maybe we could stick something in there and pry. Something small. Is this too big? It's a little too big. What do we have? What can work? Oh, I got my little dental picks. Put that in the hole and lift. No? There we go. Now again, there's going to be wires under here, and these are very easy to break off. So I'm going to set that this way. And inside, we've got 2 sticks of RAM, so we're in dual channel mode. This is going to be 16 gigs each. Standard laptop SO-DIMM RAM. We've got a frame here for something. This, obviously, these are the holes that the lid secures down to. Wonder why that's there. There's a screw here, there's a screw here, and in each corner that will lift this metal frame up, and that will expose the M.2 slot right here. And you just have the one M.2, that's all. This is our Wi-Fi card, so if we didn't like the MediaTek brand, it's 1 screw and 2 wires. We could put an Intel branded card in here if we preferred those drivers, and pop the antennas. These little, there's a plastic cover, and these pop off like snaps. Like on a piece of clothing might have snaps, but these are super tiny clothing for a Barbie doll maybe. There's a connector here for something, but I have no idea what it's for. There is no room or connector here for any internal drives other than what it has, which I think is a great idea, because anytime you encourage the user to put in more storage, you're adding more heat. And that can have detrimental effects against the performance of the RAM and the other storage, everything in this area. There's no fan, and there's no fan here. So this has been engineered and designed to cool effectively with these parts, not the parts you're changing out or adding. So by limiting your ability to do that, it's preventing you from falling into that trap that so many people fall into. There's no reason to take the machine down any further than this, because on the other side is our CPU and cooler, and the most you would ever have to do is maybe blow some air through it to get the dust out of it. And these machines don't typically collect much in the way of dust. So it's a relatively simple design to get in. Again, you'll see there's a heatsink on the M.2 drive. If you go with a higher performance M.2, you're going to need a bigger heatsink, and that might interfere with installation of this bracket, which means you won't be able to put the back on it. That's why I strongly encourage you to get the machine the way you like it, rather than try and upgrade it yourself, or you can run into some very unique situations that nobody else on the planet has because no one else did what you did. It's not to say that you can't do it. It's yours to do with whatever you want. But if you want to have a positive, stress-free experience, as much as you can, order it the way you want it, and you're going to ultimately save money and not have any potential warranty issues that, for example, if you had an older NVMe drive you wanted to put in there, you've taken the one out of warranty and the one that's in warranty included, and you've removed it. And then any problems you have are no longer warranty related in that sense. It makes life far more difficult. If you want to keep old parts with an old system, that's great. But take old parts and put it in a new system, and you're sure to invite problems your way and stress that goes with it. This is Lexar branded RAM in there. Yeah, and that's about all there is. There's a battery right there for the BIOS. Right there. Very easy. I love that there were no clips holding this lid on, right? I've always said, use one or the other. Give me the clips or give me the screws. I hate when they do both. And Reatan, in my opinion, did a great job with this. My only suggestion would be, who cares if you can see the screws on the underside of the unit? There's no reason to cover the screws up with a rubber foot. No one's going to see them anyway. There's no VESA mounting option on this also. It didn't come with a bracket. And even if you bought the bracket, there's no additional support holes for the bracket to go into. That's why it didn't come with one. So if you want a machine that you can mount, this would not be the right machine unless you were going to make like a holster for it that it could sit in. There's nothing out of the box. You know, again, if you're a maker, if you're a modder, that might be something a project you enjoy doing, but we would not do that in professional business because it's impractical and too expensive. Reassembly, super easy. Just put the 4 screws back in. The order doesn't matter. And then the rubber feet, like I say, there's little nubs and notches. They just line up and they pop in there. Now, how these age and brittle up with time, well, we'll just have to wait and see. But they do give you 2 extra feet in the box that the PC comes in. And this has a little cover on it so you don't poke yourself with it. My little dental pick tool here. These come in quite handy when you're working with delicate electronics. It'd be nice if there was some kind of a pull tab or a slot that the screwdriver could go into to pry the lid up. But these are very minor suggestions for improvement. And as I mentioned, it would be pretty uncommon for the average buyer of a mini PC to ever open one up. That's really something people who watch YouTube do that. Regular home users who aren't watching YouTube videos never even get the idea to do it, mostly. So just bear that in mind. Your world of normal, if you think that's normal to open these up, does not correlate with the vast majority of customers I've experienced in the last 34 years. Let me just set that toolkit aside, and we're going to go back over to camera 1 here so we can wrap things up. So my thanks to the folks over at Reatan for sending us this unit. They did ask if we were interested, and the reason I said yes was because of the value it offers. This might have been interesting to review 2 years ago when it was the flagship top of the line. Look at that performance. Just 2 years later now, it's a much better value. It's the same performance it was 2 years ago. That blew our minds. And now, because there are things that are even faster, the interest in this for me has gone up. Because now, not only is it still really, really fast, it's much more affordable. And I just wanted to make you aware that these are some options for you that you might not know otherwise. And a manufacturer like Reatan isn't known by the average person. And because they're a lesser known manufacturer, they got to work harder to get your sale. And usually that means more aggressive pricing or giving you more for your money. The Reatan machines we've reviewed before, we've never had a problem with them, although I don't have any in the wild, I don't think. I don't have any evidence to suggest they're They're to, how can I explain this? I have no reason to believe that there's any reliability or quality issues with these. They've never proven otherwise. But I also have a small sample of them, right? So there's 1,000 of them or something, it'd be a different story. But that's what I rely on you for. So if you buy one of these, and again, I don't care what you read online, I'm just not interested. I'm interested in what you have to write. If you're the one writing the words and you have experience with Reatan, I don't care if it's good or bad. All I care about is it's your experience and not somebody else's. Please share it with us, because with actual first-person user experiences, it can help us to establish, is this brand more or less loved by the people who buy it, or is there a lot of buyer's remorse from people who buy them? And just because you read something from somebody in some website, that's completely bogus and meaningless. But if you've actually had the experience, we would love to hear what your thoughts were. Is it something you would recommend? Is it something you would buy again? Is it something you would avoid, and why? And based on that, and if we get enough responses, that gives us a much better sample size to determine if it's a brand we want to continue to evaluate moving forward. And if so, that we can say it with much better confidence. We have heard from our viewers that have these and they love them. Or maybe if it's the other way around, we don't want to spend time reviewing products that the viewers aren't having a good experience with. That's why I'd love to hear from you with any experience you have from any of the manufacturers that we show. It doesn't have to be good. It's just real. It has to be yours, not somebody else's. And we would love to hear what your thoughts are, what your opinions are of what you bought. How would you make it better? Would you have done anything different? Is it great the way it is? In the meantime, the closest I can give you to an experience are these live unscripted videos, and that's why they run so long. This is how long it takes in real life. And I would love to see more of that on the internet. I'd love to see more reality, more genuine unscripted words that have no agenda other than to share an experience. I don't have to agree with the experience. I'd just like to know that the experience was a real one, that the person explaining it actually had, and not a shared story that has just gone from person to person to person, where somebody's DVD drive is a cup holder. I've heard that so many times. All right, with that, just keep in mind our friends at SCD Keys have those discounted Windows and Office keys. As a reminder, I don't make a commission on that. I'm trying to make sure you guys get secure peace of mind in buying legitimate products at discounted prices, because I'm looking out for you. That benefits you, that benefits me, that benefits them. Anytime I can work an arrangement out with a company like that, I am all for it. I think showcasing the Reatan, it benefits them, it benefits you, it benefits me for the content. I'm always looking for these win-win-win scenarios. And again, it's just something that's really important to me that I don't often see from most content creators that are gimme, gimme, gimme. I'm trying to do this differently. And I treat my viewers the same as my real customers here that I service, in the sense that I want to make sure that I'm delivering to you what you're expecting based on what you are returning to me, right? So if I have a customer who doesn't want to pay me, I don't really care what that customer wants. But if I have a customer that takes care of me, I want to make sure I'm doing everything I can to make sure that customer keeps coming back. That's my motivation. I'm not trying to force anybody into contracts or twist anybody's arm. I want them to genuinely want to come back and be a part of this. And to do so, I love to hear from you guys with your suggestions and your experiences and your interests with regards to content. Wireless routers, mini PCs, custom PC builds. What are the favorite types of content you like to watch? If we have an abundance of a particular subject, I can't ignore that, right? But I also can't read your minds. So your input is always welcome. And I thank all of the members for supporting this channel, without which we wouldn't have nearly as much content for free viewers to complain about. But at the same time, you know that there's no agenda for me. I have nothing to gain by promoting and endorsing something versus saying to avoid it. If I know a product is likely going to be something I don't like, I won't even bother making the video. Rather just move along. If you see me reviewing a product, it's because it has potential. I believe it does. And in most cases, the products are better than I thought they were going to be. I think this shines, especially for the price. It's just not comparable to other products in this price range for what you're getting. 32 gigs of RAM, a terabyte of storage, 12,900. If I'm wrong, send me a link. With that, thank you again for hanging out with me. Thanks to Mara, of course, for all the work she does on the administrative side of this channel, which is a full-time job, let me tell you. Again, a thank you to Reatan for sending us to us for us to review this, and then I can chop this up and make a shorter video out of it for those who just want the Cliff Notes. In the meantime, the links and discounts are listed in the video description below the video. You can buy it direct from Reatan or Amazon, whichever you prefer. And if you do buy one, let us know what you think of it. Tomorrow, Mitch will be joining us for his birthday build. We hope you'll join us too. It starts at 1 o'clock Phoenix time. It's only 4:30 here, but it's dark outside like it's 7 o'clock at night. Probably a good time for me to wrap it up before the power goes out. Thanks for watching. I'll see y'all again very, very soon. Until next time, bye for now.